Welcome to our coverage of the Vuelta a Espana, 3,800 kilometres. I'm Phil Liggett along with Paul Sherwin, and let's join the action on stage one here. It's a circuit race based on Cordoba in the southwest corner of Spain, 162 kilometres. Paul, the weather is scorching. It's 38 degrees Celsius at the moment.
It is a very hot part of Spain down here, and a lot of riders looking to see what the performance is going to be of the Festina squad. This is their first major rendezvous since they were thrown out of the Tour de France. Alex Zülle, one of those riders who was involved in that doping scandal which really marred the Tour de France this year, and they will be looking to try and clean the slate and prove that they are fairly clean riders.
And just a little more than 90 riders in the main field as we come into the last 3 kilometres before the finish here. And indeed a number of riders have been dropped, including Chris Boardman. So it's a rather disappointing start to the Tour of Spain for the Crédit Agricole rider who crashed out of the Tour de France amongst all of the doping scandals this year. And the riders now heading down to what looks like being a reasonably sized bunch sprint, but they are a long way ahead of quite a big group of riders. As they come up towards the line now, it's going to be a tight fit. Seberg gets it. Marcus Seberg, the young rider whose brother Beat rides for a different team, has crossed the line first. That's got to go down as the best win of his career. So Marcus Seberg gets the first Amarillo jersey of the Tour, finishing ahead of Juliano Figueras and Laurens Jalabert in third. And stage two, already the longest stage of the Tour, 235 kilometres, taking the riders away now from Cordoba to Cadiz. And not surprisingly, Paul, it's like a desert down this section of Spain at this time of the year. The riders all day were in no hurry at all to race this stage.
Well, it's a difficult part of the country to come and race in, especially at this time of the year, because half of Europe comes down here on holiday. And the early part of the race, the riders really meandered along and enjoyed the hot weather that really does dominate this part of Spain at this time of year. 35 degrees Celsius once again, but coming down towards the finish line, it was the big yellow jerseys of the Once squad on the front. And I feel certain, Phil, that Laurens Jalabert, who said that he wasn't interested in taking the lead so early on, has put a lot of responsibility on his team to keep the whole race together.
Oh, and there's been a crash in the sprint finish. The riders are tumbling down behind here as Jerome Blijlevens has got the victory. But they've left one or two riders scarred in that massive pile-up. As they came into the line, though, Jerome Blijlevens gets the victory ahead of Giovanni Lombardi of the Telecom team. Robbie McEwen of Australia and Rabobank, he gets third. But the yellow jersey staying on the shoulders of Marcus Seberg. And the heat's certain to continue on this stage of 193 kilometres from Cadiz on to Estepona. And the riders again staying together in that tight field. Just the sprints for the small time bonuses along the road having their effect. And at the moment swinging the race in the favour of Laurens Jalabert, who is now breathing down the neck of Marcus Seberg overall. But you know, Estepona are quite big players in the sponsorship of the Tour now. That's why the race is going around here. No doubt the reason why we're seeing one of the riders here having a chat with their team car as well.
Well, certainly an important stage for the riders too, because they move away from the Atlantic coast, head around the bottom of Spain via the Rock of Gibraltar, and then head in towards the Mediterranean part of the country. And once again, always near the front of these Spanish races, you can see the yellow and black jerseys of the Once squad, because for them it is so important to perform well here, and they're trying to make sure that they can put Laurens Jalabert in the yellow jersey of this race very early on. And you can see the wins in this part of the race really having an effect and splitting the main bunch.
Well, after being beaten by Marcus Seberg first day, Switzerland, and then Jerome Blijlevens from Holland, it looks as though the Spanish are beginning to get a control of this race. The Tour of Spain is infamous for the fact that the Spanish do seem to control the racing. Ask Robert Miller, who nearly won it on one occasion. Here come the team now of the Post Suisse as they try to keep Marcus Seberg in that Amarillo jersey. There's been a crash further down the road too. I didn't quite get a long enough glimpse of that rider, but it was a Mappe rider who's gone out the race, Paul.
You know, Phil, I think that was Paolo Lanfranchi who went down there. And what's going on here is because of the temperature, a lot of riders' reflexes are slowing down, but they're still taking the risk to try and stay at the front. And what's happening then is there's a couple of wheels are touching and several riders are falling to the ground.
Well, at least in this long straight, they get a good sight of the finish. And a rider's touched the wheel there. The man on second wheel moved across him, took him out. So there's been another crash as they approach the finish. But the field now heading towards the line. Only 2 riders on the ground. And it looks as though the man who's going to win the sprint is Jan Kirstiplo of the Estonian champion. Gets the victory ahead of Marcel Wust. But there will be a change overall because of the bonuses along the route. Laurens Jalabert now leads the Tour by 2 seconds from Seberg. So not surprisingly, pretty tight at the top after almost 600 kilometres covered. We're now on to stage 4 from Marbella along to Granada. 173 kilometres this one, and we'll stay in the hot weather for sure.
I'm quite certain a lot of these riders are very happy that we're not going up the Sierra Nevada, the big climb just out of the back of Granada here. But in the early part of the stage, in fact, it's Banesto who tried to hot up the racing because John Odriozola tried to go off the front and put a lot of pressure on. Abraham Alano is the leader of that squad, but early on in the race, they've sent him out to try and open up the trails.
Well, Alano would like to feature in this Vuelta Espana as the main field coming over. Laurent Jalabert having a good day so far. He's nipped a couple of seconds in time bonuses along the route, so he's building himself a little comfort in that leader's Amarillo jersey.
This part of Spain, as they pick their way through all of the olive trees, Phil, is a very difficult part of Spain to race through, because not only is it dominated by the heat, which is always on this part of the world, but it's also very difficult roads to race on. The road has a very difficult surface to it, and it feels in temperatures like this as if you're sticking to the surface all the time. And in fact, now the Banesto guys have replaced Odriozola at the front with number 25, Jose Vicente Garcia, who's gone off the front as well. So obviously this afternoon, Banesto have a plan and they want to toughen up the race.
Well, they're certainly loosening the legs, that's for sure now. So there's nothing about a promenade on the race today after having had a couple of days of silly crashes. Maybe that's another reason they want to get things on the move and try and loosen up. Just behind him now, the Amarillo jersey of Laurent Jalabert goes over in 3rd place, which is interesting. He's taking a close interest at the front. The Spanish teams, remember, are still looking for their first stage win, and that's a while since they've gone so many days without one.
Certainly is a beautiful part of Spain down here, though, if you ever want to come down and ride your bike in this area, because the roads on the Arrière Pays away from the coastline are devoid of traffic, and you really can have some excellent bike rides. But I don't think Vicente Garcia Acosta is too worried about that at the moment. All he wants to do is try and stay at the head of the race. But you can see the main field really taking these intermediary sprints very seriously indeed. In fact, they're not giving Garcia Acosta much of an advantage.
No, he's been swept up. He's gone back into the pack, but long line of riders, meaning that the pace is on here. And Kelme also riding well, and news reaching us too that Guerini, who's 3rd in the Tour of Italy, has abandoned the race today. So I guess he must be sick or something, because he wouldn't have climbed off this early in the Tour. Looking at the face there of Jose Luis Ribera. Remember the rider in the pouring rain that almost stole the stage into Milan on the last day of the Giro d'Italia.
Well, a chance here to see Alex Zülle, the former winner of this event last year. He's sitting at the back there of one of his Festina teammates, but a lot of work done at the front here by Team Telecom, who feel that they've got great chances of stage victories with their man Giovanni Lombardi, who so far, with 10 kilometres to go, is proving to be a very rapid sprinter in this year's event.
Well, this is the sort of day for Lombardi, and that's why they're working very hard for him now. Number 181 is Andreas Kloden, who's a pretty strong German. He's also won a stage of the Tour of Langkawi. Last year, I think it was, as they now try to set this one up. The Esteponian riders too, those green and white jerseys, would like a stage result because, as I say, this year they're getting some sponsorship into the Tour as well. There's the leader. Had a couple of seconds. He's gained 4 seconds on the road, in fact, in time bonuses, but he still needs a good result at the finish, I think.
Well, 5 kilometres to go, and Jaja looking very comfortable indeed. But it is great to see Lance Armstrong in the field here with the US Postal Squad, because Armstrong really riding for the first time a 3-week tour since he rode the Tour de France back in 1996.
Well, the riders fanning out now for what should be a sprint of all the riders. Jalabert trying to break into the action as well. Always difficult to pick out the yellow jersey in the Vuelta, but there he is, too far back, I think, as the race comes to the line, and he looks to Marcel Wust is trying, but he's given way to Grady. Lombardi right there bangs his handlebars. Blyleven's was there. I think Wust only got 4th, but that really was a battle royale of the sprinters, and in fact Grady, on the day his team leader retires, he gets the Amarillo jersey as well. So that's brought some smiles to the Polti team. Out is Guerini, and into yellow is Fabrizio Guidi. Lombardi 2nd on the stage. So to stage number 6 between Murcia and Alicante, 201 kilometres. The 5th stage, won in a sprint by Jerome Blyleven, his 2nd of the Tour. No change at all overall. The yellow jersey still with Guidi. But I think today on this rather sporting course, Paul, we might well see a new leader.
We certainly could do a very tough finish towards the end with the first category climb, the Col de Cati it's called. It's only 4 kilometers long, but it really is positioned perfectly for the finish. But obviously some of the lesser teams in this Tour of Spain trying to get publicity for their sponsors, going out early on. But again, we always see the big yellow squad of Once at the front of affairs.
That was Echeverria there being put back in his place. 10 kilometers to go for the whole field here now. And Grady trying to keep his Amarillo jersey, got his team nicely in order. Just 7 kilometers from the finish here now as the Poultry boys keep the pressure on the front. No sign of Blylavens now, who is the new leader in the points competition.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be very hard for Grady to keep his yellow jersey this afternoon, because this is a very steep climb indeed. Some of the points of it are 20% as we come up this slope here. You certainly will be seeing some major attacks. So you can see the damage already being done at the back of the main field. And this is Pavel Pandranos of the Seiko team going very easily out of the back.
Which surprises me. He's not a bad rider, even so. But this is a very steep climb here. As we look at the Amarillo jersey of Grady, he's also in trouble, Paul. He's being tailed off the main field, and this looks like Lance Armstrong going off the front.
Well, this is great to see. Armstrong has looked very good since the first day of the Tour of Spain here, and he's decided to come out and test his legs for the very first time. He, in fact, is coming right up to Jimenez. In fact, Jimenez is going by Armstrong at the moment, so that's a good move by the man who was a former champion of Spain and a very good rider on the Banesto squad indeed. But you can see the yellow jersey of the Tour of Spain this year in serious difficulties further down the slope.
Oh, Fabrizio Guidi here is waving goodbye to that Amarillo jersey. Here is Laurent Brochard, the world champion who has been in disgrace all year with the doping allegations, now back in the Tour. And riders cracking all over the place. This is Casero.
Spanish champion too is having a very hard time getting his rhythm going. He shouldn't be suffering at the back of the race like this. He is a rider who is expected to be one of the stars of Spanish cycling in the future. 4 kilometers to go to the finish, and Jose Maria Jimenez is leaving Lance Armstrong trailing in his wake. But coming up into the front of the race now, again, Laurent Jalabert, always a man to look for the victory on this kind of a finish.
Well, he's had some of his greatest occasions in the Vuelta Espana, and he's not going to let it slide away too easy now. He's already had the race lead once in this event, but this hill is an absolute brute here, and Jimenez is creating some damage behind him, and also throwing a spanner in the Banesto works, I would suggest, because Olano is supposed to be the man at the front of the action for that team.
Well, he certainly is. Alex Zuller moving to the front of this very elite group now, being joined by one of his teammates, Felix Garcia Casas, a very good climber, trying to put Alex Zuller in a position to challenge, to keep himself up in the overall standings. This short climb here, Phil, has caused devastation in the main field, and Jimenez comfortably going over the top.
Well, Jimenez then over the top. Now he's starting his descent. I noted that Laurent Jalabert sitting close to the wheel of his former teammate Alex Zuller there. They know each other so well. Kelme rider just going through there was Hernandez. Here comes the field. And Zuller second over, so that's completely shattered now. I'm not too sure where Lance Armstrong has put himself either.
Armstrong was in that group there with Laurent Jalabert. I just caught a glimpse of him going over the top. Only around about 10 riders left in that front group. A very elite group indeed, but I didn't see any sign of Abraham Olano. And a great move with 2 kilometers to go by Jose Maria Jimenez, whose glasses just fell off there as he looked over his shoulder to see where the rest of the pack was. This is Heras Hernandez coming down here, and Armstrong leading the chase ahead of Laurent Jalabert. So Armstrong is definitely back.
Absolutely, he looked good as well. He looked pretty cool there, but this man is leading by the best part of 30 seconds here, so he's going to get the win. And that'll be Banesto's first win in this race since 1990, an 8-year gap. Julian Grospe was the last Banesto rider to get a victory, and second over the line is Heras, it was. 27 seconds, and here comes Lance now, vying for third place. He's going to be challenged by Jalabert. Jalabert coming off his wheel. I don't think Lance can do anything, but a fourth place finish for Lance Armstrong. Jalabert taking the third place on the day, but a new leader now in Jimenez. And that means he becomes the leader of the Tour by 31 seconds. Jalabert is at 36, Olano at 58. And now the riders lining up for stage 7, taking them from Alicante up to Valencia before they cross over to the island of Mallorca. And this shouldn't provide too many problems. It's a flat race of 185 kilometres. And as they come into the last 3 kilometres again, the sprinters set to have their day here, Paul. I don't think anybody can stop that.
I don't think so. 2 kilometres remaining, and certainly the Tour of Spain has designed the early part of their race to smile for the sprinters, and it certainly is a good thing to see organisers doing, because sprinters get less and less chances these days in the big major stage races, but that's certainly not the case at the Tour of Spain.
As they all come down to the line together, there'll be no change overall here, but Lombardi is going to try and finally get across the line first instead of second, and he does it for the telecom team. Lombardi ahead of Blijlevens. So that was the order over the line. And with no change overall, the riders now crossed over to the island of Mallorca for 2 stages. This is stage number 8, and will take them up to the 1,500 kilometre point. This is not an easy stage, Paul, because this is a mountainous little island.
It certainly is. Many of these riders know the roads again, because one of the early events that they do take part in is the one-day series of races here in the island of Mallorca. There, the final climb of the day out of Sola on the way down to Palma is certainly where the decisions are likely to take place.
So the Banesto boys are doing their job well here, not for Abraham Olano, at least not yet, but for Jimenez, who has the leader's jersey on. By the way, the last yellow jersey wearer from Spain in this tour was Abraham Olano, and now it's over to his teammate Jimenez. Olano winning the yellow jersey in 1995. Little bit of a coincidence.
One of the Spanish riders on the US Postal Service team. This is Juan Llaneras, more renowned as a track rider and a former world champion. A good man to have in the squad. He was brought in by Johnny Welch, but further up the climbs, it's really the Kelme squad who are on their own terrain here, trying to get one of their men off the front, trying to break the stranglehold that the Banesto squad have had on since the very first few lacets of this climb.
Well, that's Jose Luis Ribera, who's gone clear, and he's a good climber. In fact, he had a great tour here, come to think of it, last year. I think on the toughest mountain stage he won it, and so he's not afraid of the hills. Pascal Hervé, another one of the disgraced Festina riders, now in the Tour and trying to put matters to rights.
These riders trying to race hard and put all the problems from the Tour de France well behind them, but I should think Pascal Hervé has got a few more worries than just getting on with his racing at the moment, as he's managed to get across the gap there to Ribiera. Now there are 2 riders at the head of affairs, and still a lot of pressure on at the front of the main field by the white jerseys of Banesto, and Jimenez is riding like a man possessed, riding like a leader to the squad, and I would think later on there'll be some certain challenges to his own teammate Abraham Olano.
Well, whichever way you look at it, Paul, it is taking the pressure off Olano right now, because all of the riders are looking to the man in the Amarillo jersey. Pascal Hervé has been caught, but we still have that one rider up front. And the Banesto boys also trying to do something here. Armand de las Cuevas, who's a little bit of an enigma in the sport, but riding seemingly well at the moment.
Well, amazing to see De Las Cuevas riding so well here at the Tour of Spain, and I wasn't sure then whether he was going off the front or off the back, because we're looking here at the shape of Marcos Serrano, another revelation in the Tour of Spain last year, and once again the Kelme squad proving that they are a very aggressive team, always out on the attack, always looking for the move to toughen up the race.
Well, they've decided to do that today because they are launching attacks whenever there is a little lull in the pace, and there aren't too many of them today, because the riders themselves are putting up a good race here on the island.
Jalabert going across there in second place, looking all of the time for the small time bonuses along the way, and looking to try and get himself a few points in the King of the Mountains competition. Still, Serrano on the front with an advantage of around about 15 seconds, and now the chasing behind Laurent Jalabert is being done by Jimenez himself.
Well, the Kelme boys always at home when the roads go up, as they continue to launch an attack here. We're still looking at Marcos Serrano into one of the tunnels. The riders don't like racing through the tunnels. There are plenty of them on this island too. A little breakaway group here trying to consolidate in the chase back as well.
Well, amazing, as we came up to the top of the climb, it looked as it was very much all together there, but there is a small group starting to get off the front here, and as always, Banesto have put a man in there, the Once rider who's managed to get in there as well, to keep a member of the team there present to take the pressure off Laurent Jalabert. But this is interesting to note at this stage of the game that in fact a group of 6 riders managed to get clear.
Juan Carlos Vicario is the number 89 we caught a glimpse of there.
Pascal Hervé on the front of the main field. You can see just how tough these roads are around the island of Mallorca. Very difficult indeed, and a lot of work being done at the front by Pascal Hervé. They're obviously trying to set something up for a little later on, for maybe the 1-2 attack by Richard Virenque, and obviously Alex Zuller, the defending champion here at the Tour of Spain. But a marvellous backdrop here in the island of Mallorca for a great day of racing.
And they're putting on the style here too, as Pascal Hervé is keeping a lot of the pressure on today. He's a great climber. He won a stage of the Giro and has worn the pink jersey in that event. He turned professional very late on in life. as the tempo continues at a pace here. And Jimenez seems to have the answer to it all. He doesn't look at all stressed as he went through our camera there.
Again, the attack's coming thick and fast. This race keeps splitting up and coming back together again all of the time. A rider there from Cantina Tolo trying to get off the front, but you can see just how difficult on these roads it is to control. The man going away there, in fact, is Martin Havazja, a Slovenian rider who was picked up by Cantina Tolo in the early part of the season. A very strong rider has got across there to the rider from Kelme.
So Havazja and Rubira are the leaders. And Rubira seemingly in his element here now. You can hear the crowd shouting on. The big bunch seems to be steadily getting itself back onto terms here. This again is Rubira. He's determined not to be caught, and you know, if he keeps riding like this, he might well snatch the race lead.
Well, if he can get over the top of Sola, it's a very good descent down to the flatlands on the outskirts of Palma, and then all he has to do then is survive to the finish line. But I think the main field's starting to take a serious interest in the chase behind him, and again, it's the white jerseys of Banesto coming to the front and riding a very solid role as leader is Jose Maria Jimenez in the yellow jersey.
But although the chasing, in fact, Ribeiro is pulling away at this moment. And so he's still strong enough, and he could well be the race leader on the road now, and maybe Jimenez knows that, and he's going to want to get his boys into action. I wonder what Alano thinks about all the energy being expended here on behalf of Jimenez.
Well, that may well be a certain discussion that's going to take place over dinner tonight, but the important thing for a Spanish team is to keep the yellow jersey in the squad, and that's obviously why the riders have formed a good surround in supporting the lead. In fact, it looks as if Ribeiro's gone down. He's
gone down, just as the bunch are picking up Bashir there. It looks as though he overshot that bend. He's got up pretty quickly, and he's back into the rhythm. He was pushing it just that little bit too hard, I fear, as the main field now come up to the top of the climb. Jalabert getting more points for the King of the Mountains.
Certainly is, but I think that crash on the descent there, Phil, will take a little bit of wind out of the sails of Rubiera, because that always is a bit of a problem for a rider. When you go down, you don't have the nerves. And again, another rider has gone down there on the descent. Everybody clutching at this race, trying to keep in control. As you can see, everybody taking risks on the descent.
This is turning out to be a shaky old tour here now. Jalabert with those points, by the way, is the new leader in the King of the Mountains. This man, though, is trying to steal the show and get the yellow jersey on his shoulders. There is signs now, though, that they are beginning to eat into his lead. So Ribeiro, that fall, as Paul Sherwin has said, may have taken the wind out of his sails.
10 kilometres left to go, and a lot of work done by the Banesto squad. They should leave it up to the other teams of the sprinters now, really, to try and chase down the leading rider from Kelme. They don't need to do too much work on these flat stages. With 3 kilometres left to go to the finish, I think it's all over for Rubiera.
He's sat up, he sensed them coming, and they're going to wipe him out here now. He looks over the shoulder. That's really sad, in fact. He was at one stage the new leader on the road. He's now been picked up. He'll have to race another day when this race continues into the mountains back on the mainland. But as they come up towards the line now, Grady's going to get his second stage win. He's challenged there. I think it was Van Petegem on his side, but Grady gets it. Van Petegem second, and Andre Schmil popped up there with third place. Overall, though, there is still no change at all. As good stage as it was for Guidi to win, it hasn't altered the overall classification. And now the riders staying on the island here for the Alcudia time trial. 40 kilometres this, Paul. Basically it's a flat course, and already after just a few days of racing, the riders have done 1,500 kilometres.
A very tough recipe for the riders. That's a lot of racing to do, especially in these very hot and humid conditions. Out on the course, though, the man who leads the Kelme squad, Fernando Escartin. What a consistent performer. He too now is trying to ride himself into the top 10 of this race.
Well, he wants a good performance here because he was pulled out of the Tour de France in protest over all that business of doping when he was lying fourth overall. He said he wasn't worried, but surely you must be when you're left out of a tour in such a high position. Here's Alex Zula trying to race himself back into the scene. This is where he made his mark early on in the Giro d'Italia this year. It became quite a tussle in the end, which he lost, but in the time trial, the first time trial, he was good, and he's looking good right now too. But in fact, his times on the splits are not looking good because he's losing time to all of the stars, big time indeed. So perhaps his form has left him after the Tour de France debacle. And now this is Lance Armstrong. He is looking good.
He certainly is. His times at the moment of the splits are putting him well inside the top 10. And for a man who in 1996 was diagnosed with testicular cancer, this is an incredible comeback. I think one of the greatest comebacks in the sport. 3Ks to the finish for Armstrong.
So Lance Armstrong fighting his way back into the big scene here, winner of the Tour of Luxembourg and the Rhineland Pfalz this year. As we now look here at Sergei Gonchar, he is the man they should all fear in the time trial because he rides so well in them. All of his victories coming in time trials of note, and he's the champion of the Ukraine as well.
It's an amazing guy to watch in a time trial. He doesn't look like a time trialist at all. He's not smooth, but he certainly is very strong. Now we're looking at another good time trialist. Uwe Peschel was third in the first ever World Time Trial Championships, and he's riding for the team sponsored by Estepona.
And so Peschel in the shot here, former East German rider and one of their best as well, now a full professional of course, and occasionally comes up with the rides but not all that often as a pro. Abraham Olano looking very, very smart indeed, and the splits are saying he's setting the best time too right now. So Olano is fighting himself back onto the scene here, not the last to start of course because that's down to the yellow jersey on his team, Jimenez, but Olano might be taking it.
He may well be. In fact, he's already caught Daniel Clavero and left him a long way behind. And the power and speed of Abraham Olano is unbelievable. It makes you think you're watching, once again, Miguel Indurain out on the roads of Spain.
Well, Olano is in, and it's going on the board as the best time for the 39.5 kilometres, 47 minutes and 7 seconds for Abraham Olano. Best time. Well, we're looking now at Laurent Jalabert, Paul, probably one of only two riders who might disturb the rhythm of Abraham Olano, of course the former world champion here in Jalabert, well the current world champion actually, and riding very well.
Certainly has improved his time trialing ability, and what he's trying to do here is make sure that he can match the performance of Abraham Olano, who started a little further up the road than he did, because if Laurent Jalabert today can equal the kind of ride that Abraham Olano is trying to do, then he may well be the man who's going to put on the Mayo Amarillo later on this afternoon.
But even so, the time checks are putting him over a minute outside of the time of Olano, and it looks as though he really isn't quite firing as he has done in the past in the Vuelta. Maybe the happenings of this summer have really disturbed his rhythm. Unlikely to ride the World Championship as well because he's actually insulted some of the officials of the UCI.
It's also very difficult for Jalabert as well, because Jalabert is one of the few riders these days who actually races for the full season, starting right in competition early on. And look at that time, Phil. It's well off the leaderboard, outside that of Abraham Olano.
So, a good minute plus as we watch here now the running of the yellow jersey. Jimenez last to start. And knowing that his teammate Olano more than likely will ride a time trial better than he, there seems to be no animosity in the team. In fact, to the contrary, these two Benesto riders have been enjoying throwing around the yellow jersey. But I wonder now if it will find the shoulders of Abraham Olano, because Jimenez is a mountain climber, and this his least particular form of cycle racing, I suspect.
Well, out on the course, he's lost an awful lot of time, Phil. In fact, he's lost minutes to his own teammate, Abraham Olano, who's going to run out the winner of this time trial.
So Olano is back on top, and that is something of a surprise, but he always uses the time trial. He's used it to very good advantage. He's got the jersey off his teammate Jimenez, and now let's have a look at the result. So Olano wins by 41 seconds from Melchior Maurer, the Once rider. Uwe Peschel getting third place there on the day, and fourth place Laurent Jalabert. This is the situation in the King of the Mountains, although there wasn't any today, but nevertheless Jalabert leads by 4 points from Francisco Cerezo, who was the leader in the King of the Mountains till Jalabert took over from him. And then in the sprints along the route, Giancarlo Raimondi is the leader here. Jalabert in the frame there second. Grady, not surprisingly, up to third with 17 points in that. He's had 2 stage wins. And the overall, no, it's not. This is the points competition. Jerome Blyleven's leading by 4 points from double stage winner Fabrizio Guidi. They've both picked up 2 stages so far. Abraham Olano is the yellow jersey, 41 seconds ahead of Jalabert. Maurer is third. Well, let's hope Jimenez has recovered on the rest day, which was yesterday. The rider's now going to the northeast corner of Spain, to Vic, for the big mountain stage of just on 200 kilometres, taking them now to the little principality of Andorra, right in the heart of the Pyrenees, which has seen so many great showdowns in world cycling with the Tour de France and, of course, the Tour of Spain. And we'll cut a course through the mountains and finish where the Tour de France has finished at Arcalís. And it's a tough climb, as we all know, Paul. And Jimenez, well, who's he going to fight? His own teammate, Olano?
It's going to be very difficult. 52 kilometres still to go to the finish line, and all of the riders worried about this stage, which the Spanish really like to call the Etapa Reina, the queen of stages, because it is so tough indeed. And already out on the course, a lot of these riders feel that they can put the new yellow jersey into difficulty, Abraham Olano, because Olano really doesn't climb as well as his former teammate Miguel Indurain.
Well, Francisco Cabello of the former stager in the Tour de France and of the Kelme team has been very active today. Now we're looking at Casino's Frédéric Bessy here. And Casino, remember, on a high this year. They've had tremendous results, moved right up the top of the team classification in the world rankings, but he looks to be in a bit of bother here.
He certainly is. This is a very difficult course, and this is a part of the course that's used earlier in the season in the Tour of Catalonia, so a lot of these riders know this. And in fact, this is where a couple of years ago Chris Boardman, the British rider who was leading the Catalonia from the very first day, lost out here on the penultimate stage of that stage race. You can see here now that the Kelmes have obviously come up with a plan, Phil, because they've put as many riders as possible into this leading group.
Well, Cabello has been so active today. Munoz dropping away from the race as these two are trying to move on. Francisco Cerezo, Santiago Blanco. And there is the new Amarillo jersey of the Vuelta after that time trial, which was 2 days ago now. The riders coming off the island of Mallorca back here onto the mainland in lovely sunshine in Andorra. And Abraham Olano, I don't know whether he's concerned about the whereabouts of Jimenez or not, but Jimenez is the man to watch out for here in the Pyrenees.
Well, interesting to note, another attack there coming from the Kelme rider. Right on his wheel as he came out of that group there was his own teammate, Fernando Escartin, who today is looking very good indeed and riding very close to Abraham Olano. And this obviously is their plan, to launch as many guys on the attack as possible. And I feel certain that once we get to the latter climbs, you'll see Escartin as well trying to leapfrog up to these guys and put the new Amarillo jersey into difficulty.
Well, news reaching us too that Festina have been weakened now by the abandon of Laurent Dufaux, second in this race and third in the last 2 years. And he's gone, I think, suffering low morale, as most of the Festina team are, after their eviction from the Tour de France with the Festina doping scandal that blew up. And this is Pascal Hervé, who was the leader in the King of the Mountains when the team was evicted. And funnily enough, the other King of the Mountains leader in the Tour, Rodolfo Massi, he's retired today, and he was the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France when he was evicted and sent down to jail.
It's been a very difficult day for a lot of riders. It always seems that riders have a hard time digesting a rest day, which what happened yesterday. And one man who's had a hard time early on in this stage, in fact, is Maurizio Fondrias, who's pulled out of the event as well. But it's good to see that the new Vitaligo Seguros team is putting some of their big boys up at the front, because Angel Luis Casero, who's the Spanish champion, is looking to try and do something, and they've got their top man Santiago Blanco on the attack right now.
And he really is the top man too. A big tussle for the right for him to ride for the team throughout the winter that went to court, but he's won the right and he looks to be a star of the future. At least the team thinks he will be. Ernesto boys under pressure, yes, but they've got the firepower in these mountains to maybe put the situation to rights. There's still a fair way to ride and there's lots of climbing, and as you can see, the weather absolutely idyllic here in September for the Vuelta, which has profited from the move from its traditional date in the early year, and I think a lot better for it now. It's become a race in its own right.
Well, Casero going over the top there in second place, but still, Phil, despite the fact that I feel the Tour of Spain is a very well-placed race now at the end of the year in September, a lot of the riders still complaining about the fact that it is too late in the season, because a lot of riders are now just coming to the Tour of Spain as preparation for the World Championships. But it really does put a real good sting in the tail of a very long season.
Oh, it looks as though Hervé's got a sting in his tail right now, because he's coming slowly back into the field. He's been away. And this is a very select little group that's now forcing themselves into the action here. Looking out for, of course, Jimenez and the yellow jersey of Olano. Olano is in this group, and it's quite a hefty little group of good climbers coming up as well.
It certainly is. Richard Virenque is riding very much to the front of that group, but I do have to think that the Banesto team has changed an awful lot since the retirement of Miguel Indurain. It seems as if a lot of the younger riders have been liberated, because they are such a strong team now. It was always said that the Banesto team wasn't strong enough to support Miguel Indurain, but here they're always to the front in force and all riding very well to defend the leader, whether it be Jimenez or whether it be Abraham Olano.
As they continue on the climb of La Camela, here are the men setting the pace, and they look as though they've got themselves a good little tandem going here, nicely relaxed as they race towards the final climb.
Well, coming through to the front there. We've got Javier, who's helping out Casero Blanco exceptionally well here, but there's another Casino boy going right off the front there. He's decided now's a chance for him to try and get up there, because Casino certainly want to try and put some of their riders in. They've not had a great deal of success so far in the Tour of Spain, and for a team which is regarded as the #1 team in the world at the moment, they're launching Fabrice Gougeot off the front to get across to the leaders. 1 minute 17 back to the main field, and this is the descent that was used a little earlier in the year in the Tour de France when it came up here, well, last year I should say, and the descent was used in the Tour of Catalonia, so these riders know it very well. It's very tricky, and once they get down to the bottom of here, they'll go through Andorra la Vella, and then they'll be heading up towards the finish line in Arcalís.
And that climb starts, and it just keeps on going up and up. It's a great area to go cycling when you're not under pressure to win a big time stage race, that's for sure. There's the man who's just crossed the gap and strengthened the lead at the front, not noted at all as a young professional, as a great climber. And I think these boys here are doing just enough to keep in touch with the leaders, and they're waiting for the final run at the Arcalís.
Well, there's Jimenez on the left-hand side there. In fact, over the rest day, there's a few rumblings of a certain disagreement between Jimenez and Olano starting to come in, because for the moment, Olano has not re-signed his contract with Banesto, and in fact, his wife has started the negotiations with the team management, and she's trying to put a certain few clauses into that contract to make Olano the sole leader of the team. So there's a bit of friction coming there. It'll be interesting to see just how those two guys handle it today.
Well, there's #1, the winner last year, so emphatically so as well. And he looked to be on course to win the Giro d'Italia this year. Then it all went wrong for him. The Tour de France, of course, completely went wrong. And so a chance for Zola maybe to do something here. But he's on the wheel of his ex-teammate now, Laurent Jalabert. Always looks cool, Laurent, even when he is suffering. But I don't think he's having a good tour. Not like the winner he has been of this race in the past.
Well, certainly it is a very long season for him. He had the white jersey on there as leader of the King of the Mountains competition, and he is at the moment still in second place in the overall standing, so he will certainly be keeping a very close eye on Abraham Olano. But there looks like one of the Kelme guys put it into reverse gear there, because he was out in the front obviously waiting for Escartin to launch an attack, but the Banesto guys here doing an excellent job on the front.
Well, that was Serrano dropping back, an early attacker on the climb, but he's now looks as though he's hit the wall a little bit there, and he's still got the big one still to come, as these three continue to head out now towards the final climb of the day. And it's a toughie. If you may remember, it was the springboard for Jan Ullrich when he passed Cedric Vasseur, who was the maillot jaune of the Tour de France 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, 2 races ago, and he went on to take the lead and win the Tour de France.
Now just cruising through the outside of Andorra la Vella. And these roads, although they're on the profile very flat, they're all slightly uphill until they get to the bottom of that road, which will take them out of the valley, then up towards the ski station at the top of Arcalís. And that is going to be where all of the big guns start to fire them, because now is when they really must ride for themselves. And it's going to be interesting to see after the rest day how Abraham Olano is going to handle this climb, because I have to admit, I have to say, as I've said several times during this Tour of Spain, he's not one of the greatest climbers, and he doesn't seem to be able to respond to the attacks and incessant accelerations of guys like this who are shooting off the front at the moment.
Luis Ricardo Mesa trying to get away now. They just love their mountains, these riders from Colombia and from Spain. And you see, the gap is nothing, Paul. There's the chase group just behind now, and Mesa trying to get across and reach them first.
Well, he certainly has opened up a gap to get across there in the main field, with all of the Banesto team on the front putting the pressure on, have nailed down this group very quickly indeed. At 1 moment ago, it was 1 minute 17, and I would say it's well under 30 seconds at the moment, but still everybody trying to get an advantage of 10 or 20 seconds before they turn off onto the very steep slopes of the early part of this climb, because it is such chaos in the main field when you get to this climb, because it is very narrow indeed, and if you can get there in the first 10 places, then it's a lot easier than fighting in the last 20.
Oh, Cerezo was the rider passing through our camera lens there. They're all getting up there now, one by one. Mesa also trying to get up there. He's got a teammate up here as well, Fernandez, Federico Fernandez. So there's going to be 2 of the riders from the Avianca team, and none of the big stars yet. They're all allowing the, shall we call them, the little fish to run, and before they make their move, because they know the finish is so tough. And it's a fair length at 200 kilometers. Here's the situation. There's the leaders on the left of the picture, the chasers on the right, and down below is the climb they're actually on. The clever technology we have these days.
Well, two guys, the three guys in the middle there trying to get across, are part of that very small Colombian team which has come across to take part in the Tour of Spain, the Avianca Telcom team. A team, in fact, that Alvaro Mejia, who finished 4th in the Tour de France a few years ago, has now actually signed up to race for again. So they feel today is certainly a day that will suit the Colombians, because they are still regarded as some of the best climbers in the world, but a big power on at the front here. In fact, and Jimenez has got across to mark an attack that's going clear again by one of the Kelme riders.
Well, the three leaders are Serrano, Blanco and Goujo, and it wasn't Serrano that we saw get caught early. It was, in fact, Francisco Cabello who hit the wall and dropped out of it. He was the man who started all of the action today. Clearly, the man they decided for Kelme was to go out and loosen everybody up. He's lasted as long as he could, and he's paved the way for Serrano to get into this lead group. Their big man, of course, Escartin, we haven't seen him yet, but he is in that chase group. And there's another man trying to get across here right now, so the Kelme boys are now beginning to fire.
Now this is going to be interesting to see what the reaction will be of Abraham Olano, because Jimenez himself has come across here to match this chasing group, and he's got right across to the front group of 3 riders, making 5 men at the head of affairs. And you can see, in fact, 3 Banestos on front of the main field, just keeping Abraham Olano in 4th place there. So the pressure now is on the Banesto boys to try and keep the yellow jersey.
Well, this is a serious move, and the reason Jimenez has responded is because that's Roberto Heras from Kelme, who's right up in the overall rankings and clearly enjoying his tour here. He's not a big name in cycling, but he always rides well in the Vuelta.
He certainly does. A big revelation last year when he won one of the stages on the Vuelta, Espana, and I think a lot of panic now starting to come into the Banesto boys. It's the first time that they've really been put under pressure in the Tour of Spain so far, and obviously on one of the toughest stages. There's the composition of that group: Jimenez, Heras, Blanco, Goujo and Serrano. But the most important thing for Abraham Olano is probably the presence of his own teammates in that group.
That's incredible. 5th overall last year, Heras, by the way, and now that's why Jimenez has come. And interesting, but Olano hasn't made any resistance here. He's just riding along behind his team. And also here is Laurent Jalabert. There's the first time gap between what is now a very serious breakaway. It's only 21 seconds, but the roads now are going to be just grind, grind and grind.
Well, Olano riding sensibly. He hasn't got to the steepest narrow part of this climb yet, so he's holding back and letting his teammates do all the pacemaking at the front. Laurent Jalabert in the white jersey, very comfortable on his shoulder, and he will wait until he gets to the bottom of the climb. Then he'll have to take over the pacemaking himself, because certainly his teammates will disappear. But this is a great tactical move, Phil, by the Kelme squad, and I think they're one of the best squads in the sport when it comes to mountain climbing, and tactically they've put a man up there now to put the yellow jersey into difficulty. But look at the ease of Jose Maria Jimenez. He's just sitting there letting everybody else set the pace, and he himself is taking advantage of this move.
He looks really good today, and he's nicely thinned down here. Just sitting on the back here is Casablanco, Colombian rider.
Another Colombian rider from Avianca. Yeah, he wasn't there before.
No.
He's obviously leapt across it. Now this is important, because in fact Escartin is going. Everybody is throwing it down at Abraham Olano, and he hasn't responded to that attack either. This man is incredible. He looks like a crab on a bike. He gets right down there, gets his elbows out, but once the road goes uphill, he certainly can move.
But the thing is, these guys are all sprinting off this lead group. They're all anxious to join that breakaway, which is dangling right in front of them like a huge attraction to a donkey. And yet Olano is watching and doing absolutely nothing. And I'm wondering if he's having something of a bad day, because I would have thought by now he might have tried to go with Escartin. And, you know, he doesn't actually ride that well in the Pyrenees.
He certainly doesn't. He hasn't got the acceleration to get across these gaps like the pure climbers have. He has to ride with a big gear. He has to get into his own rhythm, and he's using his teammates at the moment. Another man trying to launch the attack on Abraham Olano here is Alex Zulla, who's been joined immediately by Laurent Jalabert. So they've obviously kept an eye on how Abraham Olano is looking, and looking at that, Phil, he's not going too well.
He's suffering, and I think also Jalabert isn't looking so good. He's another man who doesn't like the Pyrenees, Laurent Jalabert. He's a middle-of-the-road climber. But as he's shown in the past, he does love the Tour of Spain, and he's got to the front now. He's realised that he's got to do something. The onset of nobody up there, at least of all Jalabert, so it's down to the team leader to see what he can do, because the Spanish and Colombian climbers have decided today is their big day. They're all saying this is the toughest stage of the Vuelta this year, and they're going to make something of it.
Well, this is Odriozola on the front there, trying to help out Abraham Olano. Beltran was in second position there, and this race is all in a handkerchief at the moment. You can can see the group here with Escartin coming in, and again Escartin has got a Kelme teammate with him, so we're going to have 3 Kelme riders at the front of this race very shortly, and that will give them a very serious attempt at taking over the lead in the team classification. But Jimenez controlling everybody on the front here, Phil. This is the steepest part of the climb here, not far away from where, in fact, a couple of years ago we saw Jan Ullrich blow everybody off his wheel. Jimenez is just sitting there in the group and letting everybody else do the pacemaking.
Well, after the time trial, the Once boys grabbed the team lead away from Benesto. It was held for a day before that by Lotto. But just looking around the group here, Benesto are about to get it back, or Kelme, because they're both well up with men. Once look a bit thin on the ground.
They certainly do. Laurent Jalabert, I think, very happy just to be in that group with Abraham Olano, and I reckon he's going to mark Olano later on this climb and use the big Spaniard, who climbs very steadily indeed on these climbs here. But the serious move now certainly coming from Kelme. A shout there coming from Escartin to his teammate. Come up, let's keep the pressure on. We've got the Benesto boys just exactly where we want them, and look at that.
Oh,
he's blown his own teammates away.
It's a beautiful day for a bike race, and the Kelme boys are saying it's a beautiful day for a big attack here. There's Escartin in 4th in the Tour de France till he was forced to go home after all the problems surrounding the Tour, and now obviously going to make amends in the Tour of Spain.
I do feel sorry for Escartin, because he was actually drawn into the abandonment of all the Spanish teams by a kind of pressure from the general public in Spain. It was an overnight telephone call-in that the Spanish teams organised with the local Spanish people there, and they recommended that all of the Spanish teams should pull out en bloc. And I reckon that Escartin is going to regret that decision for a couple of years to come.
Although he says he doesn't, he must, because you can't ride so well in the best bike race in the world and not come good. This looks like it's Nicky Ebersold from the Swiss team trying to make a bit of progress.
Abraham Olano now still using his teammates very sensibly indeed. On the front there, Odriozola, followed by Beltran. Beltran, a very good climber indeed, and one of the French riders, that was Bessie, who's going to go shooting out of the back there.
No, it's Gougeot, in fact, Paul. He's cracked. He was in the front group, but he's gone. He went across there well enough at the bottom, but the climb has gone on a little bit too much for him, and the Spanish and Colombian climbers have hurt him too much and pushed him out of it. But this, the race here now is just one big survival, and anybody that wants to could get across that gap, but only if they've got the legs, and it looks to me as though Olano might be on the back burner here.
I think he is on the back burner. He's leaving his teammates to do the work. One of the Colombian riders from Avianca Telcom coming back from that leading group. Sensibly, though, you can see that Olano is not panicking at all. He's letting his teammates do the work as much as he can. The idea of being a good leader of a race like this is to make sure you use your teammates till the last possible moment. But that gap to the leaders is actually starting to increase quite a bit.
Yeah, but the big thing about top bike riders, they know their ability and the limits of their ability, and somebody like Olano is going to allow these riders to have their moment and will not overtax himself, because if you hit the wall by overshooting your mark, then you're going to lose big time. At the moment, he might only lose a minute or so because he's riding very, very sensibly here.
Jose Maria Jimenez there, just sitting at the back, riding an excellent race here. He's a guy who I thought would have done better in the Tour de France this year, but obviously didn't do quite so well. Virenque now deciding that everybody is leaving Olano behind, and he's going to have a go at trying to put... In fact, it's Hervé once again. Well, that's a big surprise. These guys, they all had their hair dyed just before the Tour de France, and they all look the same now.
I think Virenque's has grown out. It's back to black again. But anyway, Hervé's kept his. We're on the Montauk now, first category stepping stone to the final climb, and again the decisions are being made. This is another beautiful climb here.
It certainly is. It's okay to watch, but I tell you one thing, I wouldn't like to be out there riding today because the pressure is certainly on. Hervé is digging in again, trying to put Abraham Olano into pressure. There's Virenque in 3rd position there, slipping back down the line, and now the attacks are coming from the big guys from the Mapei squad, because they certainly are looking for something out of this tour. This is Oscar Kamenzin, no longer in his Swiss national champions jersey, but he too is looking for a good performance.
Yeah, that national champion now is Ebersold. We caught a glimpse of. He's disappeared. I think he's back in this group somewhere. But Kamenzin now pushing on. They're nipping across as best they can. And the Cofidis boys on the defensive here as well. Without Bobby Julich, of course, after his marvellous Tour de France. But Bobby in the past I think, in fact, really, he first came to our notice in a Tour of Spain when he was so good.
It certainly was. In fact, he took the King of the Mountains competition early on in the Tour of Spain a couple of years ago and held on to it for 10 days, and everybody said, this guy is pretty good, and he was signed up and transferred across to the Cofidis team, where really this year's Tour de France proved that he is a magnificent rider, and an American rider we'll see an awful lot more of in the future.
Kamazin been picked up by Zuller. Zuller's had to make some sort of decision here and see what he can do. He doesn't look great, but he's going to give it a go, as all great riders do. And joining there, Clavero of Spain. Wow, now all of a sudden this group is getting a little bit thin and short of teammates for Olano. He's only got one left.
He's only got one left, and he'll use him for as long as possible. And once he fades away from the front of that group, then what's going to happen is Abraham Olano will have to take up the pacemaking himself. Alex Zuller now seems to be getting across the gap. He's riding well, but it's very difficult. You can see the pain on his face, and this is certainly a very difficult stage, especially with the heat over this part of Spain at the moment. It's very hot indeed in September, 32 degrees Celsius on the thermometer this afternoon, and Zuller is digging deep trying to get across the gap, and he knows Abraham Olano further down the road is in serious difficulty.
There's a lot of individuals living in their own private world of pain here at the moment. Zuller has made an effort, but I think he's not going to get on, and there's the answer to that. He almost made it, and the legs have gone. Escartin will be very pleased to know he's cracked Alex Zuller here, because he is keeping the pressure on. And these sort of climbs, which don't look steep, but they just hurt the legs all the way. You can see a long way ahead, and it is a very difficult mountain to climb.
Cameron's in there on the front setting the pace, and the guy right behind him is Daniel Clavero, who's pulled his jersey up just to try and keep a little bit of cool air coming through there, but Alex Zuller didn't go anywhere at all. He got 100 or 200 meters in front of this group, and he just reached his maximum speed, and they've pulled him back into the fold.
Well, the old form just not there for Alex Zuller, and Olano will be pleased to see him come back. He'll know now he's not going as well as he usually goes. Last year's winner back in the pack. Olano continuing to limit his losses here and looks okay. There's the differences now. 36 seconds, the leaders back to the chase group. 13 seconds, the chasers are just ahead of Zuller and Olano. These are the leaders now, and Jimenez and Escartin, two brilliant pure climbers, now free as birds at the front of the race, and they might make ground here.
Well, Escartin's not going to get any help at all from Jimenez, who's sitting in second position there, riding sensibly. You see, just getting into his back pocket there, throwing the food away there, making sure that he's as light as possible for the last part of this climb. And Jimenez has got to ride all on the back wheel of the man in front, because he, for the moment, is riding the role of a domestique.
A main chase group here with Roberto Heras, also going to accelerate up the overall classification again as he makes a little pace at the back, but he probably won't chase too hard now, because Escartin, the team captain, is up front. And let's see, no, you see, he won't help anybody. He's just riding third wheel, keeping an eye on the world. It's a lovely position to be in. You can follow wheels and nobody can complain.
25 kilometers to go, and still everybody within 1 minute of each other. You can see the leading group of two riders still 35 seconds ahead of the chasers, and still only around about a quarter of a minute separating them from the main group here, with Abraham Olano, Virenque, and obviously Alex Zuller.
Well, a little bit of false flat for the chase group in the bottom picture, but as you can see, they'll be on the climb again very shortly. And well, Olano just allowing it all to happen around him at the moment. Now, these are the kilometers per hour of each moto. Moto 1 follows the leaders, Moto 2 the chasers, and Moto 3 is with the Olano group.
Coming over the top of the climb there, Jimenez just pops by Escartin to take maximum points in the King of the Mountains. Thank you very much, I'll have that one. And he'll resume his place up in second behind the attack that's coming from Fernando Escartin. The group behind, though, is now looking very serious indeed, with a lot of work being done at the front by Clavero. Oscar Kamenzin very happy now to sit in second position, and obviously the Kelme rider there in third won't do anything at all to help, because his man, the #1 man on their squad, is out on the attack trying to get himself a victory in the Tour of Spain. He's always been very consistent when it comes to these big 3-week stage races, but he's never managed to pull off the big win.
Well, Laurent Jalabert, by the way, is the current leader this morning in the King of the Mountains, but the way it's going right now, Jimenez at least could be pulling on that white jersey tonight.
Well, there's Lance Armstrong as well. He's very much to the front in this group, having a fantastic Tour of Spain there. He's up in around 6th position, so obviously riding very comfortably. And this guy, I think, is surprising everybody in the Tour of Spain. Okay, he rode well on the flat stages. He won the Tour of Luxembourg this year, but to be riding at the front on a tough mountain stage like this is remarkable.
It means he knows how he's feeling, and he must be feeling good, because this is a tough stage today. The weather conditions in everybody's favour, I think. But even so, Alano here, not making any effort to slip away. He knows his limitations. He's just freewheeling at the front of the group. And he's a pretty good descender anyway, but at least this way he sees where he's going, and these roads are made for fast descents.
Certainly are. He's right down there in the tuck position. This rather a difficult and dangerous position to adopt, because you lose a certain amount of agility on the machine, but it does get you down as low as possible. And in fact, that little descent there has brought him up to the group that was right in the middle. He's closed 13 seconds in no time at all. But you can be pretty certain that Lance Armstrong won't be too far behind, because he too is an excellent descender.
Well, there's Jimenez getting the 16 points in the King of the Mountains. No score at all for Laurent Jalabert, so we have a new leader for sure now. The Benesto boy riding well, and the way they're riding, they could be in the lead with Alano or Jimenez in the yellow. The King of the Mountains and the team race by the end of this day, if it all goes well. But the Kelme team have been the team of the day for us.
Well, this is the same descent again that has been used on the Tour de France in the past. A very tricky descent now. They'll drop down into the bottom of the valley, and then they will start the final climb up to the ski station at Arcalís. Jimenez sitting in second position there, forcing Escartin to lead around the corners, and you can see Escartin is not a fantastic descender here. He's not using the best lines around these very steep hairpin corners, and he's losing certain amounts of time. There's Armstrong. We can see him now. He's come across to Abraham Olano, and you know, I have to say Lance must be surprising even himself, because I spoke to him, Phil, just before the Tour of Spain, and he said, I'm only going to use the Tour of Spain for training for the World Championships. That's where I really want to show this year. But I tell you what, I think he's riding himself right up into a very high position in the overall standings.
Well, he's right there now. Here we are, about to start the climb of the Arcalís. Difficult corner here, coming off one mountain pass and crossing the valley and into another one. These are the leaders. One man doing no work, so if they're still together at the top, I'm sure that Jimenez will win the stage, because he's just sat there and let Escartin do all of the pacemaking. He's played the perfect teammate. He looks like he's got his communications working now, and he can't hear properly.
Okay, boss, what do I do now? I'm at the front of the race. I'm right behind Escartin. What's happening with Olano? I really don't know what to do. He really is a good lieutenant, because at the moment, this guy could be riding himself back into the Amarillo jersey, but he's still taking the time to talk to his team manager and say, look, Abraham Olano is the leader. What am I supposed to do here with Escartin? I don't know if I can stay with him on the climb. Shall I just sit here, or shall I drop back to the main group?
He's having trouble getting through, I think, as he tries to listen to what he's saying, and now he's put his hand up and said, I can't hear, how about a drink?
It's the most important thing on these big mountain stages, when you get to the flat sections in between the climb, to keep yourself topped up. He hasn't got any bottles on there at all. There's a quick glimpse of Armstrong. No more teammates left in this group for Abraham Olano, so what he has to do now is keep a nice steady pace going on the flat section. Make sure he doesn't lose too much time over the next few kilometres. With 10 kilometres remaining, it's all up to him now to set the pace on the front.
Well, Escartin still doing the riding. I think probably Jimenez has been told that now that Olano has made his move to try and cross the gap, and he's coming across with Lance Armstrong, that there's the group that they all left, which still contains Alex Züller, I think.
Escartin doing all of the pacemaking on the front for himself. He won't get any help at all until the latter part of this climb. Still trying to get across. That small group of riders now has changed. The Vitaligo Seguros rider in there, it looks very much like Zinchenko, not a man renowned for the big mountain passes. But you can see that group of Abraham Olano swelled a bit, Phil. Certain riders have obviously taken a few risks on the descent.
No, it surprises me. The climb didn't do a great deal. There is the climb now up to the finish, the Arcalís, the Estacio de Pal. And it's a long, hard climb to a height of nearly 2,000 metres, which is well in excess of 6,000 feet. And it's pretty steep.
It certainly is a very difficult climb after 200 kilometres in the saddle, because this today will be at nearly a 6.5-hour stage over this kind of terrain. And there you can see moving himself up into second position. Recovery there by one of his teammates who's come up to help him. Abraham Olano still under pressure from Fernando Escartin, getting advice here from Alvaro Pino. A very good rider himself in the old days, now knows exactly how to try and encourage his rider at a stage like this.
1 minute and 4 seconds, so there's a good sign of resistance coming from the back, and that sort of time gap, thanks to the time trial, means there should be no change overall if it stays around that gap, and Olano will keep his Amarillo jersey. But Escartin obviously regaining time lost, and he's trying to be a challenger in this tour as the days continue. He's riding superbly. He's not even going to bother to waste his breath asking Jimenez to come through and help him, because he knows he won't. He's just going to get on with the job and hope that he can get some time on this group here.
Olano still not looking comfortable on these climbs, Phil. You can see he's always getting out of the saddle, rocking the top part of his body, trying to just get the gears going over. 5 kilometers remaining, though, for the two leaders. And Escartin knows now that he really has to ride. And Jimenez dropping off the back a little bit of the wheel of the leading Spaniard here. And this is a face of a man really possessed. He knows what he has to do. He has to get as much time as possible between himself and Abraham Olano, because when it comes down to the penultimate time trial, he needs to have a big buffer over the Spanish time trial champion.
Well, 9 kilometers an hour they're climbing at, just over 5 miles an hour. Looks a bit quicker than that, I must say, but it just gives you some idea how steep these slopes are. Each time we get a glimpse back, which has been sort of reformed at the back there with Olano now, it's always Beltran who is doing the work for Olano. He's an absolutely superb teammate, and I reckon he's probably the domestique of the season, really, the way he looks after Abraham Olano.
Now again, pressure coming on Olano because his Banesto teammate has been blown away there. Jalabert coming to the front. Jalabert actually not looking too bad on this stage. It looks like he's recovered somewhat, and he's putting the pressure on here, followed by Kamenzin. So they're trying to once again put Abraham Olano into serious difficulty. Kamenzin taking over, and it looks as if Olano's moving back a little bit.
Well, it's good to see they're still trying, and of course these attacks and counter-attacks after over 5 hours in the saddle is going to reduce that attack by the two Spaniards up front. And here the chasers are now caught. That'll be Harris who's coming back into the fold. That's a shame for him, because his chance of a high overall position is obviously now going to be a little bit damaged, but he's back in the bunch, which means we've only got the two riders of significant note up front now.
Certainly that's the situation. Abraham Olano looking to be in serious difficulty there. On his shoulder, wearing number 1 last year's winner, Alex Zuller, riding a tempo. He hasn't got the power there, and there is Armstrong switching over, keeping an eye on Abraham Olano just to see how well the big Spanish rider is performing this afternoon. Armstrong, I would think, will be so surprised to see himself here with this kind of rider on the big mountain passes, because in the past his performance in the big mountains at the Tour de France have not been magnificent and have not proved that he would be a great climber. But climbing the way he is today, he obviously has changed an awful lot over these last couple of years since he had that diagnosis of cancer.
Well, if he holds this lot today, he's going to be in the top 6, I would think, overall, and that's not bad for a man who only came to ride the Tour and hopefully finish it. He's right in the thick of it on a really important day today. These are the strong men of this year's Vuelta, and the Amarillo jersey is fighting himself back into the fray, continually closing the gaps. I think it is largely Laine Jalabert who's hurting them, and he's trying to break away, but he's not getting clear at all, as this group, with the pain on all of their faces, and even though he seems to be losing his white jersey as King of the Mountains today to Jimenez, he is always at or near the front, and the attack's going again.
Kamenzin, once again, the former Swiss champion, getting off the front there. He's having a magnificent race here. He really does seem to have the form which has been avoiding him all season. Now he's coming right into form at the end of the year. 3 kilometers ago, and Jimenez has gone for it.
Well, good for him, and I think he must have been given the all clear then. He knows that the gap is staying pretty much around a minute behind. If he's going to win, he's got to win alone, but there's a lot of fight still left in Escartin. He must have expected this attack at some stage as we race up towards the finishing line. It's 3 kilometers to go now, approximately. Now we can see everybody. There's Armstrong on the left-hand side, still with them. The race, though, has split all over the mountain now in what has become a desperate scrabble for the line, and there's going to be time gaps between them all, I think.
Jimenez has gone again there. Escartin obviously reacted there with anger.
Must be it, Paul, this time, surely. Oh, he's coming back.
I tell you, Escartin is such a courageous rider. He's all over his machine there. He knew the attacks were going to come, but this time he can't respond.
Well, he's bound to have expected that. He was never going to win this stage, but it looks as though Jimenez is going to win this stage. I don't think the time gaps will be anything like enough today because of time lost in the time trial to reclaim the Banesto personal Amarillo jersey they're throwing around at the moment. But even so, I think Olano will be pretty happy they've got a stage win of this quality.
Well, you can see there Jimenez has got a definite advantage over his former companion in that breakaway, Escartin, and Laurent Jalabert is still at the front of the second group on the road, trying to put Abraham Olano into difficulty. And you can see Olano in the bottom left-hand side, thanks to our technology here, is just off the back of that group.
Well, there's the face of Jimenez. He's in the barrier line now, so he's not far from the summit. 15th, he slipped away to after the time trial. A long drop, but it was only a few seconds, covering a lot of people. And now he's trying to damage them all and climb back into a serious position in the overall classification. And Banesto having it all their own way today. They're going to take the lead in the team race. I think they've got the lead in the King of the Mountains and still will keep the leader in the race, whatever happens now.
It looks like everybody's riding an individual time trial here. Jimenez is out on the road on his own in front. He's being chased by Escartin, and further down the slopes Abraham Olano has no teammates with him at all, and he's trying to just limit his losses, but he's come now into the group of Jalabert. A great ride by Olano because he keeps getting dropped every time there's an acceleration, doesn't panic and just rides himself slowly back up to the others.
Well, it's a brilliant piece of riding by this man. The way, I mean, he's obviously had a bad day and he's struggled, and he really hasn't lost much at all, and this is a hard day for him.
He's not looking good at all. His shoulders have dropped down a bit. He doesn't look the proud Spanish rider that he normally is. He's just suffering. He's really going through all kinds of hell on the slopes of this climb here, but he knows he has to keep with these guys and make sure that he doesn't lose too much time, and that's why he's pushing himself further and further into the depths of despair.
Steady climbing then by Jimenez, knowing and feeling great because he's heading up towards the win, and this will be a superb performance for him. Just keeps keeping his rhythm. He's on the top chain wheel there, can you believe, now, as he tries to come up towards the finish.
Huge power there. He's looking at the 1 kilometre to go barrier across the road there, knowing now that he hasn't got too much further to go, and he'll be pushed on a little further by that. He knows that he's had the advantage of sitting behind Escartin as the policeman for Banesto for a long time now, and he'll be spurred on towards the finish. His advantage around about 20 seconds over Escartin, but you can see the difference down to the group of Olano is 1 minute and 14 seconds. So this man Jimenez is riding himself back up into the overall standings after losing a lot of time a couple of days ago in that time trial.
Well, he's recouping approximately half of what he lost, so that's going to bring him right up the overall classification again. And we've still another day in the Pyrenees tomorrow before the race moves on, and so there's plenty of more chance here for Jimenez to gain more time. And tonight around the dinner table, obviously Olano's going to say, I was feeling a bit rough. Jimenez had no choice but to do what he did because he was a perfect team man. He went with the attack. He didn't do any helping of that escape, and he's clearly been given the all clear by the team to go and try and win the stage, which he's doing. So if he got the lead, nobody could blame him. He's never attacked Olano, that's for sure.
He rode perfectly, a perfect gentleman, a perfect teammate. He did exactly what he was expected to do. He covered the aggressive moves by Escartin and the Kelme boys, and now once he could see Escartin was failing, he leapt away, and he's looking like a very good winner this afternoon.
He certainly is. Almost 5.5 hours in the saddle across the Pyrenees today. Well, the last time he won the stage earlier on in this tour, he claimed the Amarillo jersey. I don't think he'll do that this time, but he'll certainly be becoming a challenger again. Kisses to the crowd, stage win number 2. What a great tour this man is having. And there is the hero of the day. The Kelme came into the Pyrenees with a real plan. They used all of their climbers. They started off by sacrificing Cabello, and then Serrano, then Heras, and finally Escartin. He couldn't quite handle the team tactics of Banesto, but he gets second.
Fantastic performance. The press going wild here because they can see now that Jimenez is confirming the fantastic rider that he showed he was able to be last year in the Tour de France, and this year he really is confirming. Here's the group coming in now just down the road there with Abraham Olano. The time is going to be important.
Well, the rider's coming up towards the line. This is Heras who will get third. A good ride by him. He was in trouble halfway up. And Camazin takes 4th place. And the main field, Clavero was there in 5th. And Jalabert was around 6th or 7th. So the group are in. And the time gap, not that critical, I don't think. And there's no doubt now that, in fact, Olano will keep his leader's Amarillo jersey. Here comes Lance Armstrong, and the clock's saying just over 2 minutes. But remember, that's on the winner. And he's still very much in touch. He'll climb up the overall classification today, and well, he might too.
Well, the reference there, Phil, in fact, is that he came across the line there with Pascal Hervé and Richard Virenque, so he's climbing with the best of them.
Absolutely. He's going to go home tonight feeling great, which is just as well because we're back in the mountains again tomorrow. There's a look again at the man who's the star of the moment, Jose Maria Jimenez. And he's climbed up the overall classification now into the top, I would make it into the top 4 riders. And there is the result. Escartin, Jerez, Camazin and Clavero, as I gave it to you. And the maillot, and he said the maillot jaune, but the Amarillo jersey still on the shoulders of Abraham Olano to fight another day in the Pyrenees. And that's exactly what he's got to do, because this one, stage 11, 200 kilometres, leaving Andorra right up towards the French frontier at Amprieu. And this is a tough one. If there's any good news, Paul, it's at the end of the Pal ski station, which is a terrific climb of 14 kilometres. Apparently, it's been reduced to a mere 5 because of bad road surfaces. So I don't think Olano will be complaining about that. Overnight, he has said he had a terrible day in the Pyrenees yesterday. Well, let's hope he has a better one today. Very often, you don't get 2 bad days.
Well, especially when you're a big specialist at the 3-week races like that, but you can see this race has no flat sections at all as it creeps all the way through the Pyrenees to come up to finish in Serlaire, which is a very difficult finishing climb as well. You know, Olano today, again, I think will be put under pressure once they leave here, the city of Andorra la Vella, because yesterday the Kelme riders rode magnificently.
Well, there are the climbs, and as I say, one of the climbs at the end reduced slightly because of bad road surface. A quick reminder of the overall situation as we catch up with the action on the road. Olano starts the day 41 seconds ahead of Laurent Jalabert, a minute 10 on Escartin now. 4th is actually Jimenez at 1:36, and 5th is Gonzalez at 2:06. And Lance Armstrong is now in the frame, 2 minutes off in 6th place. That's brilliant.
That is a fantastic performance by Lance Armstrong, and I think he's getting more confident as the days go by. He just wanted to ride this event for preparation for the World Championships, but you can see riding and accompanying men like Richard Virenque in the mountains just goes to show that Armstrong has seriously improved. I feel that he's changed his body shape a little bit during the last couple of years as well, because he's lost an awful lot of weight, which is probably why he's becoming somewhat of a climber.
Well, we're looking here at the men who have started the action day, Ribeiro from Kelme and Vicario. And again, the tactics have been very similar. Kelme have started using men very early on to try and break up the main field. And once more, Paul, that's having an effect.
It certainly is, and again it's putting Banesto under pressure. They've got to send the boys to the front, and this again has been a very difficult stage because the group of Abraham Olano has immediately been reduced to around about 25 riders. But Kelme are so consistent on these mountain stages. They're always putting 3 or 4 guys up the road in the front trying to put the pressure on. This is Rubiera, who is getting information from his team manager there, and we can see with just around about 25 kilometers left to go that there is a big armada of Banesto guys in that group with Olano. And now today wearing the white jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains is Jose Maria Jimenez.
That's right, and it did work out for Banesto too. They are the team leaders as well, King of the Mountains and race leader at the moment, so they're having a terrific tour. And you know, just after Miguel Indurain retires, along comes people like Jimenez and Olano to pick up the bits, and that is quite amazing for Spain.
Well, Spanish cycling certainly has bounced back. 10 kilometers remaining now for the leaders and their advantage. Just over 1 minute back to the main group. But Banesto looking stronger and stronger as the days go by. They're riding a very solid Tour of Spain here. They are becoming one of the top stage race teams in the world. No panic at all. They all come to the front and they just sacrifice themselves for the 2 guys who they know now can take over when the mountains come, Olano and Jose Maria Jimenez.
Ribeiro getting word from his manager here about the state of play. Inside 6 miles to go to the finish. He's still riding well. There he is, 12th overall, looking for 3 minutes 13 seconds. And I don't think he'll get that, because looking back at Banesto today, they're looking a much better team, well organised. Here they are, and there is Jimenez now, still playing in the Super Domestique, sitting on the back wheel of the Amarillo jersey. These 2 are now down to 7 kilometers from this, what will shortly be the summit of the last climb, and the gap a mere 58 seconds. So there'll be no Amarillo jersey waiting for Ribeiro, but somebody I would think will try to get away from this group, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if it wasn't another Kelme rider.
Well, that's been their plan all along now. This looks like Jalabert back in his own Once jersey now, trying to go out of the front a little bit too early, I think, because the climb is still a couple of kilometers up the road. 41 seconds, so the gap to the leaders starting to come down. Rubiera very happy, I think, at the front there with the help that he's getting from Vicario, but certainly again Kelme trying to set it up for some kind of attack, I think once again by Escartin, who put everybody into difficulty yesterday apart from one man, Jose Maria Jimenez, who's turning out to be the strong man of this year's Tour of Spain.
Well, Jalabert's tried, but I don't think he's going anywhere. He's going to come back in the bunch. A little bit of picture wobble, so don't adjust your tellies as the race regroups here. Quite a big bunch there, Paul. It's indicating it's not been that tough a day.
Well, Vicario's had a tough day because he can't stay on the back wheel of Rubiera, who's decided now is the time to go out alone, and he's up the road now, trying to open up the gap, and certainly hoping that one of his teammates will come up as they have done in the past, because yesterday's performance on the climb up to Arcolis was a magnificent tactical performance by Kelme, who are closing the gap in on the Banesto domination of this year's Tour.
Well, the climb starts now, but luckily for these riders, it's not 14 kilometres. It's around about 4 kilometres left to go up to the finish, maybe slightly more, but it's all uphill anyway. It's a pity about the rough roads, but as I say, some riders will be upset about it. Men like Escartine, who would like to get to grips and try and break Olano, but Olano certainly won't be complaining. He's thinking more of the time trials to finish this Vuelta and try and get the win, and he's going to have to watch out for Jimenez as well, I think.
Beltran moving to the front there for Banesto, but look at the style and ease of which Jose Maria Jimenez reacts to any attacks at all.
There was almost one there, did you see it? He almost went and decided, no, I'm not going to go now, and they all sat up again.
Well, he was so quick to see any kind of move by any of the Kelme riders, and Jimenez is straight on his wheel. He's looking for the openings. I think he wants to be the policeman and not attack his own teammate, but to go with all the moves that might get clear.
I think it was Gutierrez who tried that one. It could have been Escartine. Anyway, we're still back with the race, which is on the climb now. The crowd watching the Vuelta Espana come up.
It's amazing.
3 kilometres
here. You look at this backdrop that we're getting this afternoon, and it reminds you of a lot of the old westerns that Clint Eastwood used to make many years ago, because this part of Spain is very much devoid of an awful lot of habitation, because it really is a magnificent area to come and visit. The French champion there, Jalabert, slipping back down the line a bit.
A lot of the westerns actually were shot in Spain, even though they purported to be sections of North America. Anyway, back to the Vuelta. The pressure is on. Olano will feel reasonably happy here. Lance Armstrong is. Look at him moving back into the action.
Armstrong looking very comfortable indeed, sitting well up on his machine, getting as much oxygen into his lungs as possible. But he must feel very confident now, riding up alongside some of these top riders in the world who've put in a full season, because Lance Armstrong's season has really been a little bit sporadic. He started off very well early in the season with the Ruta del Sol and went on to the Tour of the Mediterranean, but after that he disappeared from Pyrenees and then came back again later in the year with a great victory in the Tour of Luxembourg. But now he seems to me to be riding himself into some magnificent form here in the Tour of Spain.
Well, there's Olano. We caught a glimpse of Beltran. I think he was in the spot of bother there. But now Olano still gritting his teeth, coming up towards 2 kilometres to go to the finish. And so he's not going to lose that Amarillo jersey. The Kelme boys have been delivering quite a few blows, but at the end of the day, they're not getting very far.
And again, Olano moving up onto the tail of one of his teammates here, letting his teammates set the pace, but it looks as if Escartine has gone again.
And the other guy's Heras, I think.
Heras is there to help him, but look at the white jersey there in 4th position. That's Jose Maria Jimenez marking the big attack again and leaving Olano, as he was yesterday, to ride the mountain slopes at his own tempo.
Well, that is amazing, but even so, the rider seems to be helping. Is Fernandez. Manuel Jeans is trying to set the pace there for Olano. Surprisingly, Beltran hit the wall and dropped out of the picture pretty fast. Laurent Jalabert still up there, now in his Champion of France jersey. Continues the climb. It's really steep just here, but the big boys have gone again. Escartine, Roberto Heras, Jimenez playing the perfect policeman, has just jumped onto the train and gone away again. Of course, he's going to take more time, and very soon will be a challenger to his own teammate, almost by default.
Amazing the performance. This man really is becoming the man of the match here at the Tour of Spain this year. There's a good shot of Lance Armstrong there, sitting comfortably on the wheel of Alex Zuller, who in turn was sitting on the wheel of his former teammate Laurent Jalabert. But there, Olano just sitting comfortably in 2nd position, allowing his teammate to do all of the pacemaking. He's not panicking at all. A very sensible ride, because he knows he cannot respond to the attacks of these climbers like Escartine and his own teammate Jose Maria Jimenez. But the big maneuver again today coming from the Kelme squad, trying to wrest the lead off the shoulders of Abraham Alado.
Well, it's been another glorious day in the Pyrenees for watching the Tour. The sun is shining, the riders are responding with a marvellous day of racing, and they're now on the steep part of the climb. As they continue to accelerate, the crowd running alongside them, but not for long here. As they continue to set the tempo, our camera's staying a lot with Olano, but of course remember the breakaway is up front. It's in the top left of our picture now. as the race again, a desperate battle for the finishing line, and Escartin is in the action with Jimenez and Roberto Jerez, and the guy from Vitalico is Clavero.
Clavero, a very good rider. He's become much more visible over the last couple of days here. But here is the main group behind with Abraham Olano just getting onto the back wheel there. You can see Oscar Kamens in, very happy to be in this big group here as well.
There's the four leaders on the left, and they're still setting tempo. Front and back of the chase group in the bottom of the picture here. But this now is a bitter battle for the summit, and there's the time gaps. So Escartin hasn't been allowed to gain a lot of time over Olano over these 2 days here, and he certainly tried to do that, because if we go to flatter roads, of course, advantage will leave him for a while. And the two boys from Kelme looking good now, and if anybody deserves a stage win right now, it's one of these two. 1 kilometre, Paul. 1 kilometre to go. Escartin still sitting in second position, letting Jerez do all of the work, with Clavero sitting on the back, and Jimenez looking very comfortable. A magnificent performance by him on these mountain stages. And still further down the road, Olano is going through all kinds of difficulties. You can see there, just to stay on the wheel of the rider in front of him. He really is suffering, and Modesto teammate there looks over his shoulder just to keep an eye on the face of Abraham Olano to see if there are any telltale signs that he may well get dropped because of the speed here. Now, well, there's not much wrong with Olano today. He's not losing more than a few seconds on the climb. He's just being caught a little bit there by an acceleration by Zuller, of all people, who seems to have dropped away from this race, and Jalabert. Jalabert looks over the shoulder, Zuller's on it, and in fact coming up into the slipstream is Olano. He's going to give them nothing at all. The only riders he can't control through the Pyrenees are the boys from Kelme, and they have ridden superbly. I think they've used the whole team over the last 2 days to launch attacks and to break up this field, and in fairness, it hasn't really come off at all. Their ability has not been much more than people like Jimenez or Olano, and Jimenez is going again. Surely he's not going to get 2 out of 2 in the Pyrenees, but he's going for it, and Jerez is right behind him too. Yeah, also Escartin and Clavero, the four are sprinting it out. He's leading from the front here, and he seems to be so strong, the king of the mountains, in his rightful position of first as he comes up to the line. Are they going to take it? But there's a nasty left-hander. He's still sprinting in that big gear, and they're not going to get him. 3 stage wins and 2 back-to-back in the Pyrenees, and he'll notch off a few more seconds as he comes up closer to his teammate Abraham Olano. Here's the rest coming in. Zuller and Jalabert making it across the line. And I think also they want one of the riders from Benesto here, having left his teammate Olano, gets in, losing just 19 seconds to Jimenez on that climb. But there will be a little bit of a closing of the teammates again there on that result. Well, just look at that, the king of the mountains. He's having such a superb tour. There's Lance Armstrong, losing a lot less today, round about 45 seconds. So there's the result of the stage, as we call it. Zuller coming home in 5th place overall in the King of the Mountains, building his lead now. Jimenez and the early leader Cerezo, and Jalabert down to 3rd. And in the individual classification, well, there you can see it for yourselves. Clavero is now 5th. And the mountains for the moment are going to be on the backs of the riders as they head on to slightly flatter roads. And indeed, this stage, well, it's a little bit ripply, isn't it, as the riders now go from Benasque to Jaca. On the edge of the Pyrenees, 187 kilometres, and the riders now will have covered by the end of the day over 2,000 kilometres, Paul.
It certainly will. It's been a tough tour so far, and in the main field, Jose Maria Jimenez looking very comfortable indeed, but there's a small break up the road again. Everybody trying to put pressure on, even on these stages which aren't regarded as big mountain stages. There's no flat on these courses, which opens up a lot of chances for riders a lot further down the overall standings to go out on the move. And one man who's read the move correctly today was Leon van Bon from Rabobank.
Yeah, he's in there. So too is Gianni Bugno of the Mappe team, and he's up there as well. This man of massive experience, riding his last big stage race before retirement. He will still come up for the World Championships. The Italians no doubt will select him for that, and then the end of a long career which has been a scintillating one. Anyway, no big challenges coming this way at the moment. Jimenez relaxing just that little bit after his long escapade in the mountains. And Leonid Berrutia there was the balding Spanish rider who flew through our lens. Looks very much like Jimenez Diaz Zabala. And look at the way the race is splitting up now, though.
Well, the front group has split off there. You can see, in fact, Gianni Bugno came straight across to this leading group of 4 riders now, leading the rest of that big group up the road in their wake. And Gianni Bugno reading the move very well indeed as he got across there to the front split.
Well, in fairness, if he's going to win a stage in his final year of the Vuelta, it'll have to be today, I think, because he's not going to find a better move than this. He probably knows it. He's a brilliant bike rider. I remember in last year's Tour of Langkawi how on the climb in the Genting Highlands, a vicious climb, he completely blew apart, so he helped one of the local riders get up the climb. He dropped back, he pushed him in, he helped him up there. Well, that rider later on in the Tour of the Philippines ran out the winner.
It's a great performance by a man who certainly is one of the gentlemen of the sport at the moment. He's in that leading group of 4 riders. I'm surprised, Phil, to see from that back group there that Leon van Bon didn't get across here. In fact, it looks as if Bugno's decided these guys are going too slow for him.
Well, you know, we could be witnessing here a great escape by the Italian. Everybody looking at each other and saying, well, come on, who's going to take up the attack? Because, in fact, Bugno has gone. He's waiting for no decision here, and he's going to have a go himself.
Well, Jose Ramon Uriarte from Festina was the guy trying to get across there, but sitting down there, powerful as he always has been, Gianni Bugno now has opened up a gap of around about 15 seconds on the chasers, and you can hear the crowd really cheering for this man who has been a great favourite.
Well, good for him, and everybody will be delighted if he keeps this up, because Gianni Bugno has been a great star. Riders trying to get across. The Kelme boys organising the peloton here and keeping control of things. But I think everybody would love to see Bugno take this stage. Over the years, Gianni Bugno has won a pot full of races, including 2 World Championships, twice the winner at Alpe d'Huez, and he's won classic races like Milan-San Remo, which at the time when he won was a record average speed. I'm not sure, in fact, if it still is.
10 kilometres left to go still, and in fact, the group that Gianni Bugno is in have all been swept up now, and in fact, the chase behind him is being taken up by Santiago Blanco, who's been joined there by Roberto Sgambelluri, so the race really starting to change in the main field, starting to pick up quite a lot.
Well, 7 kilometres to go. There's Escartine and Laurent Jalabert. Didn't make the gains that they wanted in the Pyrenees. As the race now running atop on a par with the French frontier. The stage tomorrow, by the way, will not go into France. The Spanish organised deciding not to tempt fate in case their riders are stopped at the frontiers and all their bags searched. It's not so much that they're worried about, it's the fact they might get delayed and the race might be delayed.
Well, there is Uriarte dropping back down there towards the main field. He's been passed by Santiago Blanco now, who is running second out on the road.
Well, this is unbelievable now as Bugno can hang on to the finish. He's just 4 kilometres away from the line in that typical time trial position, former champion of Italy, as the other 2 riders are trying to bridge the gap, but they're really stuck in no man's land at the moment.
You can see that this is a great performance by Gianni Bugno here. 3 kilometres remaining to get down to the finish line, and his time gap last time over race radio was up to 1 minute, and the main field not really reacting to organise the chase behind him.
So this really all broke up around the 50 kilometres to go mark, and gradually that leading group has shattered itself, and nobody, they're not going to get back up there now. We've got Blanco here sitting on the wheel of Gambelluri. And now Gianni Bugno is about to live what will probably be the last time of his career, probably the last time that we even commentate on him as a big-time winner. He's going to cherish the moment because this is his swan song done in the finest of styles. A stage win in the Vuelta Espana to end a sparkling career. There's still a few more stages to go, but somehow you get the feeling that this is the end for Gianni. And Blanco coming in and taking a very cool second place, just under 2 minutes down, in fact, and Gambelluri taking 3rd place on the line. And the race is split up terrifically today, but not by the men that matter. Uriarte here, he's coming home. The clock has ticked by over 3 minutes now. So other riders had the chance today. Hasn't done a thing to alter the overall classification at all. It'll still be Olano, Jalabert, Escartine and Jimenez on the top of the leaderboard, and they'll all live to fight another day. And Olano looking pretty satisfied with the way things are going just now, but watch out for his teammate Jimenez in 4th. And the race now coming towards the end of its 2nd week, just 1 full week to go, and instead of racing into France today from Jaca, the race has moved along to Saminamigo, and they made a circuit there of some 208 kilometres, slightly less hilly. I don't suppose there'll be too many complaints about that. But even so, it's going to be quite a testing circuit. The riders going over the Alto di la Navassa on 3 occasions. And Paul, they've got off to a cracking start again.
They certainly have. The guys seeing this as a chance to get a stage victory here. And one-time team who's really been aggressive this afternoon is Vitalico Seguros, one of the top teams with the biggest budgets in Spain this year, a new team on the block, but certainly they haven't had an awful lot of success. And interesting to see that Rolf Sorensen is out on the attack for the first time. I'd almost forgotten that he was riding the Tour of Spain this year after giving an option to miss out on the Tour de France.
That's right. He was in the break yesterday with Leon van Boom, but we didn't get a chance to show him to you before he was no longer there. Anyway, he's in the group here. The wily Rolf, who's preparing for the World Championship, which is one of his targets, or the target for this year. And that was the reason he didn't ride the Tour de France. And he's come to the Tour of Spain for some form. But Vitalico, as Paul has said, one of the top teams on the Spanish circuit as far as money goes this year. But they could do with a win in this race right now.
Well, the man on the lead for them is Andrei Zinchenko, who's got an advantage of around about 25 seconds at the moment, which is why everybody's panicking trying to get across to this rider. A very good Russian rider who's been pro for 4 years now, but still no victories under his belt.
He's a tall man, as the Estepona rider here, Echevarria, is trying to join in, and Dixons, the Belgian rider, on the far side of our camera. Little healthy group this, because it's not going to upset the heads of the race, so they may not chase it down too hard, as they've taken advantage of the escape.
Well, a good move by Vitalico, because they've also put a guardian angel in there for their man up in the road, because the man on the back of that group of 4 riders chasing was Juan Carlos Dominguez, a very good sprinter when it comes down to the finishes.
And the Benesto boys playing the perfect team here as they look after their man in yellow. And the whole team at the front now just keeping the tempo right. But here comes the star of the day, the Russian rider, Zinchenko. He's on the climb and looking as though he's suffering a little bit now.
Well, he's been out for an awful long time, and it is a very hot day out here once again on the roads of the Tour of Spain. Dirksen there in the group. This man really has been a revelation this year. Started off his career somewhat as a Kermes rider, but now he's really progressed to being a good rider in these big 3-week stage races. But Zinchenko is really stretching out his lead at the moment.
And the Benesto boys more concerned with looking after Alano, and it looks as though Jalabert content to mark him. Here comes the chasing quartet. Anyway, they're through the top now. These two are still trying to get up to the front road. There's a lot of riders here feeling they have a chance of a stage victory, especially as they're not affecting the destiny of the Amarillo jersey at the moment. This man, who is really surprising us today to get a ride like this in, because as Paul said, he's never had a win and he's been on the circuit a few years now.
I'll tell you one thing though, Phil, he's in fact now extended his lead to over 2 minutes, and I have to tell you, this is no gift to Vitalico, because there's a lot of animosity in the Spanish peloton to this team, who came in with big money and bought up an awful lot of riders. So this is no gift horse, and he's actually riding away from a group of 4 men, all working pretty well to chase him down.
Well, that's amazing. Well, there's the 2 chasers, and here come the rest of them now. And it looks as though they might all get caught here, except Zinchenko, who's hanging on in there. There's a terrific tempo being done by this chase bunch, and there's plenty of riders there right now, but there's only 4 kilometres left to go for Zinchenko, a former member of the Soviet Union when he was an amateur, and was a very, very good team pursuiter. I'm not sure, Paul, whether he's a team time trialist or a team pursuiter, but he was one or the other.
He was a team time trialist, actually, a very good rider indeed. And you can see this group of 4 riders now. They're obviously thinking about the presence there, sitting right on the back of the group of Dominguez. They're worried about the fact that even if they do manage to get across to their lone leader, they're going to get a counter-attack from Dominguez. 2 kilometres to go now, and nobody, I don't think, is going to catch Zinchenko, who really is digging deep. Although there are always guys trying to get out of the main field. This is Alexander Moos, who rides for the Seiko Cannondale squad.
It's all too late, because Zinchenko gets his first win, and he also has given a great boost to the team here today, and they'll certainly be pleased about that. Champagne tonight. Here's the sprint for second place. Dixons gets it there just ahead of Echevarria and Serpellini, but this man has got his first big-time win, and he'll be delighted. Overall, no change at all. Alana looks a bit confused, but he should be used to these kisses by now. And in the King of the Mountains, Jimenez, a clear leader here. As we now move on to what is a stage 14 here. The riders now continuing their journey across the top of Spain from Biescas to Zaragoza. And not starting this morning, in fact, Jerome Blijlevens, who lost his lead in the points classification yesterday, and today he has decided not to start. So the points leader is now, by the way, Fabrizio Guidi.
And a very flat stage again once in store for the riders. 145 kilometers, finishing in the streets of Zaragoza. So I reckon, Phil, because of the winds that normally blow here across the plains of Aragon, we can be sure that the race is going to be pretty quick.
Well, judging by the angle of the echelon there at the front, the winds are ripping right through from the top left-hand corner of the screen. As we join the action here, just 4 kilometers from the finish, and I can tell you there has been a breakaway of some 18 riders trying to dictate the race pattern all day, and a tremendous chase down which has really hurt the Banesto, and they've had to get help from other teams in the chase, but they've got the race more or less all together again now. The man they were hunting was Roberto Heras, who at one stage could have taken the race lead, but as we come down to the last couple of kilometers, Paul, the race now all together.
It certainly is. Rolf Sorensen once again trying to get off the front there because he's looking for a stage victory before the end of this year's Tour of Spain.
But I don't think he's going to get it now because the race has come together. It's going to be a day for the sprinters once more. Remember, Blijleven's not here, and he's won stages this year already, but it looks as though it is going to be Smetany, the Vitaligo rider, being challenged by Marcel Wust. Wust has got him right on the line there. The points leader, Grady, getting third on the far right of the picture there. And overall, no change in the leadership. He's still there in yellow. And Marcel Wust being credited with the fastest ever stage victory in a major tour, 51.137 kilometers per hour. This the 15th stage, 178.7 kilometers. It looks bad on the profile, but didn't turn out to be so, as the field stayed all together, heading away from Zaragoza to Sarria. And the Vitalico boys on the attack again with the remnants of the Cofidis team, and this is David Plaza Romero, the Spanish rider, because they've been decimated by this race. As they come up towards the finish here, Zinchenko is thinking now of a second stage win, but Cofidis would dearly like to get one, but in fact Plaza leading out. That's always a bad sign. And up to the line, Zinchenko having a magical tour now, getting Vitalico a second win in 3 days. And now as we get back into the start of the final week, 2,650 kilometers covered, and we're in the hills Sarria to Laguna Negra. It's a little bit of a mountain top finish, and the riders now coursing across the north of Spain, and tomorrow they'll be very happy to know they get onto the flatlands for a little while. But this should be quite a good stage, and it should be a day out for the mountain climbers again. The overall situation unchanged for the last couple of days. Jalabert 22 seconds off the pace, Jimenez at 31 seconds, Escartin at 38.
And once again, it's going to be a difficult sort out for Abraham Alana because the finish is at 1,900 meters, a tough finish after only a 143 kilometer stage. And as always, Phil, every time there's an opportunity of a break to put the pressure on the yellow jersey, it's the green jerseys of the Kelme squad out there putting as many men to the front as possible.
Well, hats off to them because they know where they've got to make the moves, and they're doing their best to break the grip of Banesto, although they're not getting a lot of reward here. The Once team, not the threat it used to be in the days of Zulla. He's over to Festina now, and coming up the overall rankings just a little bit too. Zulla 2 minutes 12 seconds off, but he is in 5th place overall.
They really are using a lot of bullets in this last week of the Tour of Spain. Kelme have put a rider in every move that's gone on this afternoon stage, and the man there just sitting up, leaving it up to his teammate now to still try and keep the pressure on. US Postal now starting to get men into the action as well, with Peter Meinhardt, the Danish rider on that squad, slipping across into this group of 4 riders, but certainly he's going to have his work cut out to stay with him once this road tilts up towards the skies.
And it won't be long now with just 14 kilometers to go, about 8 miles to the finish, as the riders make their way up. But none of these riders again are going to affect the destiny of the Amarillo jersey, so there's no real cause for concern here as the race continues across the north of Spain, moving from right to left. The Spanish flag flying proudly, but may not. Well, this would be a turn-up if he managed to pull this one off for the US Postal. A minute 15 is not a lot, actually, with the climb that's still to come. There's the peloton more or less all together. There's the profile the climbers will start relishing when they get to it, as the riders make their way up the steep slope. So as Paul said, they're almost 2,000 meters at the finish. And
7 kilometers of climbing, the average 13.5%, so very difficult indeed. Big organization now coming into the white squad on the front here of the Banesto riders, and Peter Meinhardt is not going to win this stage because he's just come rocketing off the back of that group, which has now been reduced to 3 riders at the front. And you can see once again the Vitalico Seguros team really now starting to ride very well after those 2 wins by Smetana, because they've put, in fact, Dominguez into the breakaway group once more.
And right just in front of Dominguez there is the Festina rider, Jose Ramon Uriarte, who is a good climber at 10 kilometers to go, and Dominguez appears to have a bit of a problem here.
Rubiera once again for Kelme on the attack in the lead there, wearing number 108, the lime green jersey of Kelme. Always the jersey we see the most of when it comes to these big mountain stages, but Dominguez is not sure what's going on at the moment. Keeps putting his hand up there, trying to get his team manager up with the gap now well inside 1 minute. The team managers will have been removed from that gap to make sure that the race is not falsified. Well, Peter Meinhardt Nielsen from US Postal Service is back in the main field, and a good chance for him to see how the big heads of state of this race are doing, and he'll probably have a quick word with Lance Armstrong there as he goes by to make sure that the American rider, who is really performing well here at the Tour of Spain, has got everything he needs.
Well, there's been an attack here by Dominguez, so the message has come. Ribeiro has had enough. I don't think he's got the answer to this one. So Dominguez might be going clear. I tell you what, the Vitalico boys are having a great tour now. Zinchenko has lit the blue touch paper, and they can't get enough of the victories.
Well, he's a long way down in the overall standings, 49.5 minutes behind the overall leader, 53rd overall. But what's important to him now is to try and get as much publicity as possible for Vitalico, because they haven't had the season they would have expected. I think it's a team we'd see an awful lot more of next year as we look down to the front of the main group there, once again being led by the white jerseys of the men there who are really dominating this year's tour, the Banesto squad, and in the white jersey as King of the Mountain leader, Jose Maria Jimenez, looking like he's going to walk away with that competition.
And the Kelme workers here in our bottom left picture are slipping off the back of the main field now, having been on the attack all day, to no avail as it turns out. But it looks as though the race here now is picking up the Festina rider Uriarte. So now there's only going to be one man at 6 kilometers, I think it was, to go.
Well, Uriarte getting a chance there to look at his former teammates. He was one of the big squad of Banesto in the years of Miguel Indurain, and he now has switched over to ride on the Festina squad. He's been caught and will be dispatched pretty smartly, I would think. And Dominguez putting in a great ride here, because this man is not one of the greater climbers on the Vitalico squad. He really is much more at home on the flatter stages, but here he's trying to hold on in his lead, now slipping down to 45 seconds because of the pressure that's being put on by the Banesto squad once again on these very difficult mountainous roads.
He had a great season last year, winning a lot of small stage races. He was quite a star. He's gone over to Vitalico this year, hasn't quite reproduced the effort, but he continues now as the tempo is also, you know, he may not stay away here because the speed of Banesto is bringing this race up.
Well, it's dropped down from 45 seconds to 33 seconds now, so he really is only just holding on to his advantage, and the work being done by this well-drilled squad now surely will bring him back into the fold before the summit. But you can see the queue starting to take up once again behind Abraham Alano. There is Alex Zullo, Richard Virenque, all moving themselves up to start a new challenge. But there, Phil, was the champion of Holland for the first time I've seen him in this year's Tour of Spain, just moving up there. Bogard with his red, white and blue tricolour jersey on his shoulders.
Well, he had a formidable Tour de France, and he's clearly using this race as preparation for the World Championships, because we haven't seen him at all. But the Once rider is now launching an attack.
This is Echavarria coming to the front there, looking for a move there. You can see there bearing a bandage on his right knee, another rider who's had several accidents throughout the Tour of Spain here, but he's not getting too far off the front.
No, but he's caused a lot of consternation amongst the cars, because he's caught the lead cars. You probably heard them blowing their horns. The motorbikes there now, and he's going up to what looks like a Kelme rider, so this must be a Ribeiro is now being caught. So there's only one man left up the road. Echevarria is going straight by Ribeiro.
In fact, that's Mikel Zarabaitia, the rider who for a long time was left on the sidelines by the Banesto squad. He was regarded as a great rider, finished second in the Tour of Spain a couple of years ago, and he's just come back into the sport and switched across to the Once squad. He had a very bad operation on his back, and he's now looking to try and get back to some of the form he had in earlier years.
Well, he was injured in a car accident, I think it was, and he's finally made his way back. But he is a good bike rider, and he has featured in this event before. But right now he's not going to feature, because Banesto have now got just one rider left in front, and that is Dominguez.
Well, that's no panic though for them. They've just kept the tempo going clearly. Once the attacks come, they just keep going at the same pace, a pace that is going to be very comfortable for their man Abraham Alano. And this is what's happening further down the field. Uriarte's gone straight off the back of that group.
Well, you take your chance, you pay your price, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. At the moment, they're not really chasing that ride in the top left of our picture. They're just keeping their high tempo. If they catch him, they catch him. If they don't, they don't. And frankly, they won't really care, because he's not affecting the overall at all. They've got him well under control now.
There you can see comfortably once again in second position Jose Maria Jimenez riding perfectly at the front of the race with the man we're looking at now. Dominguez is just trying to hold on. There's the average gradient there, 13% at the moment, and Dominguez is still doing a very good job holding off the attack of this very smart squad now led by the Banesto riders, which now has been reduced to around about 20 men.
Well, Dominguez last year had a magical season. He won the Tour of Valencia, the Tour of Murcia and the Catalan Week, and by doing all that, of course, he became very valuable property, and that's why Vitalico took him to their new team this year. But he hasn't really had the great season. He's made his bid for glory now. I'm not so sure Paul is going to survive, because here comes the Kelme boys now. Well, no, just about. He's had a little bit of a
little dig there at the front by Kelme. Once again trying to set it up, because they're moving up into second place in the Kelme squad. There is Escartin, but Laurent Jalabert again still in second place in the overall standings. Feels he's got a chance of taking the yellow jersey and possibly the victory here, because he's so close to Abraham Olano. But that was again just a little dummy attack.
And that's Serrano who's trying to do something, but he seems to be not going very far, and with only 12 seconds hovering, getting a bit shorter. They're right on the back wheel now of the breakaway.
Vironk moving up on the outside now. He's going to have a little dig. He always has a go if he can to try and get away from the leading group of riders. He's so far down in the overall standings now that certainly they're not going to chase him down if he's got the energy to get off the front. But this is what it looks like at the back of the group there, just going off there. The man wearing number 109 was Marcos Serrano. A very difficult day for him in the mountains to try once again to put pressure on Abraham Olano. But it's now the turn of Laurent Jalabert, the champion of France. Blew everybody away in that French championship, and he doesn't have the legs to put Abraham Olano into difficulty this afternoon.
I tell you, Jalabert, even though he doesn't really like the big climbs, he's willing to make it hurt for everybody, and he wants some help here. It's a very narrow stretch of road here. The spectators' cars parked on half of the road as they climb up towards the summit. And in fact, Jalabert looking for some help here. There's only one or two Kelme riders left now. They've sent most of them out of the back door as we get to 3 kilometers from the summit, and continually setting the pace at Banesto as we expect.
It looks as if Jimenez is in trouble there. Phil, he moved across to the right-hand side of the road and dropped back away from the leaders there. You can see him just at the bottom of the screen. That's the first time we've seen him move out of second or third position on a climb like this, so he may well be paying for all of the efforts he's put in throughout the last 2 weeks of this Tour of Spain. In fact, moving right to the back of that group now, which is being also covered by the Kelme riders and Fernando Escartin.
Well, you can see him on the bottom right of our picture. Now it's the bottom left as we look at the riders from the front here. I think it's Beltran still setting the pace at the front as he continues, and still sitting up behind him there, the yellow jersey of Olano.
Well, I can't believe on the top there we've got Dominguez still holding on. 10 seconds is his advantage, and always we've got Beltran on the front here, but it looks as if Jimenez has recovered a bit, because he's moved back up again alongside Abraham Olano, with Jalabert looking very good this afternoon, looking for a moment to try and put Olano under pressure. And good to see that Virenque is up there, still riding consistently with the best climbers in this year's Tour. Now Jalabert's going again.
Yes, he took one look at Beltran, a quick acceleration. He wants to end this behind the two Kelme riders. Heras and Escartin are just following the line, but you see Olano is paying attention today, and he's straight after him.
Well, they're similar kind of riders. Jalabert's not a great mountain climber. He doesn't have the acceleration of the riders like Escartin, and that's the kind of move that Olano can match. But look at this now, Jimenez. I thought he was in trouble, but this is great to be in trouble like this.
Oh, this guy's enjoying the Tour, isn't he? 3 stage wins already, and now he's taken his chance. He's gone away from his team leader, and this is how you do it when you're a great climber. He's going to ride straight up to Dominguez in one easy movement.
No problem at all. He's come straight out of that group there. He waited to make sure that Olano wasn't in difficulty, and he's leapt right across to the lone leader. In fact, I think he's gone straight by him, because it looks as if Dominguez has disappeared completely from the picture. There he is there. He's just stopped dead.
Well, you've got to feel sorry for him. That looked good for a long way up the climb. He was holding them off, and then all of a sudden Jimenez goes really good. I don't know how many of you got long memories like I have, but 30 years ago there was a great Spanish climber called Julio Jimenez, and he could climb mountains better than anyone, little bald-headed chap. And now it looks like we've got another Jimenez, a clone, coming up the mountain now. He hasn't got bald head yet, but you never know.
You never know if he gets too many worries with the discussions over his contract, which he certainly is about to renew with Banesto. Benesto for next year, he may well lose a few hairs, but for the moment he's not worried too much about that. He's worried about getting to the top of this mountain, which is just 2 kilometers away from him, and he really looks fantastic on the bike here. He's had so many stage victories already. The white jersey, if he wins this stage, I feel certainly now will go to him, because nobody can challenge this man in the mountains.
No.
And Abraham Olano looking very happy now just to look across at his new challengers.
Well, you know, we're heading to a situation where Benesto could occupy first and second overall in this race if they continue to keep this sort of pressure up now, because Jimenez is gaining big time. There's no reaction from that field. As I speak, there it comes. Escartin having a little dig.
Well, there's a good move there, going out to the front by the Kelme squad once again. But you see how Olano doesn't respond to the accelerations of the climbers. He just lets his teammates take the pace up nice and steady. And again, it's the turn of Beltran to come to the front here and keep the pressure on nice and comfortably, so that Olano can stay there and not have to respond to these constant accelerations.
Olano is a survivor in the mountains. He's made that pretty plain, but what a talent he really is too. If he can survive at this sort of quality and allow just 1 or 2 riders to slip away. And now he's going to be pretty content too that Jimenez is moving clear to what will be his 4th victory, unless Escartin can get up to him. There's Armstrong as well, putting in another memorable performance today on this climb.
Well, Armstrong limiting his losses on all of these climbs here. He's not managed to stay in the group of Abraham Olano, but he's not very far off the back of them. He's got 2 riders from Vitaligo Seguros to help him out there, and he really is riding a superb Tour of Spain. I don't think we can say enough about the performance of Lance Armstrong here, Phil, and all of the riders every evening are talking about how well Lance Armstrong is riding after the comeback from 2 years ago when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. They believe that this is the most magnificent comeback that they have seen, but they also believe that this Tour of Spain has been the revelation of this man now, Jose Maria Jimenez, who's looking for the last kilometre banner.
And the Spanish crowd love him. In fact, it looks like the Kelme boy has gone back in the field. It was Heras who put in the move there, because Escartin's on the other side of the road, but he's back in the pack.
Well, Jimenez at the front there on his own now, looking for another stage victory to put into his back pocket, and certainly he's got a great advantage. 33 seconds once again he's opened up on the chasers. His own teammate Abraham Olano, and the Spanish flags are all out this afternoon, and certainly still 1 or 2 Basque flags out there as well, because we're still very much in the heartland of the Basque country.
Well, competitively wise, we've had a great Giro d'Italia, a great Tour de France, and there's no doubt now we're being treated to a great Vuelta as well. The battles, and everybody believes they've got a chance. We've witnessed over the days attack and counter-attack, and in the mountains this man on each occasion has popped out as the top rider of the day, and now he's continuing to climb. A massive crowd here. They're all loving it now to see a Spanish rider in the thick of the action, and there's the race leader as well.
Very tough climb. They've been climbing now for 6 kilometers at an average of 13%. Very difficult indeed, but the guy on the top left-hand side, Jose Maria Jimenez, is looking so comfortable. He gets out of the saddle almost with ease to climb up these mountains. And in the second picture to the left, to the right-hand side there, you can see Beltran is doing the ideal job for Abraham Olano, keeping the pace high enough to make sure that nobody launches a surprise attack. There's 1 kilometer to go for the leader.
So the super domestique, Beltran, just looking after his man back there and being totally unselfish in the pacemaking, as he has done all the way up this mountain indeed. And there he is, and confident in the knowledge that a nice little tempo here, stop the attacks while Jimenez takes the day. They can't do a thing wrong at the moment, the Benesto boys.
Richard Virenque having a pretty good day too, moving himself up into 2nd place there. Jalabert again looking at the face of Abraham Olano. You know, he's not very far down in the overall standings, and probably feels that if he can put him into difficulty on a climb like this, he can pull himself a bit closer. In fact, he's moving forward again.
Well, hats off to Jalabert. Never stops trying, and it always seems to be struggling on the mountain climbs. He's under the kilometre to go.
No response. It comes from Escartin, who's going across there. Then the new man to move, Richard Virenque. But look at that. Olano can see the difficulty. He's not going to let people grapple a few more seconds away from him on stages like this. There's about 10 bike lengths difference between Laurent Jalabert, Escartin and Abraham Olano, who again has sat down, deciding not to respond to that acceleration. He's going to ride the last kilometre at his own pace.
And a massive crowd enjoying it now as they come up towards the top of the climb. They're on the flat roads tomorrow, but they're not thinking about that right now. Maybe Olano is, though, because now he's coming out of the mountains feeling in pretty good condition. Or perhaps not quite feeling in pretty good condition, but certainly in a good, strong position.
Well, for him, the mountain's a question of survival. He puts the hammer down in the time trials and survives in the mountains. But this man, his own teammate, is the big mountain climber, and he's coming right up towards the line.
So win number 4 for Jimenez as his great tour continues. He can't believe this. There he goes. He's getting used to that now. The leader and winner of the King of the Mountains. I think he's such a good lead in that competition. He is now home. The clock has started. And there could be a little improvement in the general classification for Jimenez if he keeps this up today. Jalabert at last has slipped away. He's got Escartine with him. He should manage to handle Escartine in the sprint. And in fact, Escartine not offering any resistance. They go over the line about 35 seconds down. And that looks like Alex Zula coming in with his Festina teammate Virenque just behind him. And Beltran being allowed to stay on the front to bring home his team leader yet again. And so in 7th place, Abraham Olano, and almost a minute down. So you lose a little bit of ground to Jimenez and not concede too much to Escartine, his other rival. But Jimenez now will have climbed a little bit overall. And very shortly, I think we're going to see 1-2 for Benesto if Jimenez can keep up this sort of pressure. But it was a great day in the mountains there. And it's going to be a long wait too, Paul, for the rest of the riders. Is this Lance Armstrong? Yes, he is. He just lost a bit of ground on the closing kilometres of the climb, but he's not lost much time at all at 1:23. So well done, Lance. The mountains here again offering us another epic battle. And now all they've got to worry about is the flatlands tomorrow. Well, there he is. He's pulled on his Benesto team jersey. He's got 4 stage wins to his credit now. And I haven't seen the big traditional trophy yet, but I'm sure it'll come out short. Oh, there it is. And these chaps must need a special bus, I think, to take them all home. But Jose Maria Jimenez, the winner today in 3.5 hours. Jalabert, Escartine, Zula and Virenque. So Festina at last making some impression on this tour, although it's not really the sort of impression they'd like to make. And there is the overall. Jimenez is now 3rd. And now we have just 6 days to go. This a nice flat stage across the plains today between Burgos and Leon. And by the way, Beltran is now up to 8th place, just over 2 minutes down, despite his unselfish help he's giving Olano.
2 kilometres to go on the whole field all together, and it's going to be another day for the sprinters to try and get glory in this year's Tour of Spain, because it hasn't been a fast stage, but it has been too fast for this guy going right out the back now.
Well, in fact, for a while, they're almost stopped still. It was been one of the slowest stages of the Tour, but here they come, and Marcel Worsted heading them home, win number 2. He got the fastest stage. I think he's also won the slowest stage there. But even so, a win, as Marcel will tell you, is a win. That is 8th ever stage win in a Vuelta. He's now had a great record in this event, and he always sends me an email after he's won just to tell me how he did it. Well, we can see this time for ourselves. He's all smiles. So Marcel Wust getting the victory there, just getting in ahead of Edo of Kelme. Overall, no change whatsoever. And it really should be the case too as we move on to stage 18 at 230 kilometres. We're now plunging due south from Leon down to Salamanca, leaving the north behind us, and Madrid is getting close. No real challenge at all on this stage, and it's coming around to the sprinters again here, Paul.
It certainly is. The early part of the race was dominated by a big breakaway, but as they got closer to the finish, the main speed came again from the TBM squad, and Sergei Uchikov trying to get off the front there to get himself a lone victory. But nobody today wanted the lone leaders to survive, and the big pressure in the main field brought it all back together.
And as they're heading in towards the finish, 7 kilometres to go. Now there's the field wrapping it all up, and hopefully, for the sprinters at least, they'll get it back in. Uchikov is a master of the lone escape. He's done it before. In fact, he won a stage of the Tour de France at the expense of Lance Armstrong once. Now, as they continue to go under the banners down towards the finish, and again, there'll be no change overall in this race as they start to think about the sprinters taking their day, but there's always those willing to try and break them up, and the attacks at the front still coming.
Still coming, but every time it gets off the front, they come back together. Michael Bogaard, the champion here of Holland, sitting on the back there, very happy just to ride the last couple of days of this year's Tour of Spain for training, because he's thinking further down the line to the World Championships in Valkenburg in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, he really has decided to use this race as a training race. There he is, number 61. We've never seen him at all take part in the event. Not what the organisers like to see, by the way, either. 2 kilometres to go now, and still riders willing to try and spoil the sprinters' day out.
Ludo Dirksen from the Lotto squad trying to get off the front there, hoping that he too can fox the sprinters on the run into this town, but his advantage very slim indeed, and the big teams on the front once again keeping the pressure very high.
But the field are coming at them, and the cat and mouse is not going to help them at all here. They're going to be swept up almost in sight of the line, and swept up they are now. Peter van Petegem on the right is leading it out here now, but on the line it looked to me as though it was Grady who got it.
That was very close indeed. I don't know where he came from because it looked so close. It looked as if it was all sorted out by Van Petegem, but you know, I do believe the victory there went to Grady.
And that is confirmed. Grady was the stage winner, the points leader. Well, the riders are going to find themselves back to the mountains today, 4 days from the finish and 3,200 kilometres covered. This 170 kilometre stage taking them from Avia to Segovia. And really, the one big climb they're going to worry about, Paul, is going to be the climb of the Navacerrada.
Yeah, but certainly not a major difficult climb for Abraham Olano, because the slopes of that climb really are fairly even, so he'll be able to get his big power going and roll the gears over there. But you can still see, again, in this part of Spain, it's always undulating, never really flat as they make the way across towards Segovia, the area that Pedro Delgado hails from, and that certainly will be an area where, once we get a little bit closer to Madrid, our man Abraham Olano will certainly feel a lot more confident with the time trial still to come.
Right, so the high spot of the day, 1,860 metres, and the man has been on the attack today in really determined mood here as we start that climb of the Navacerrada, and that is Roberto Heras. He's the number 2 on the Kelme team now. He was the number 1 in the first week. He was right up there as high as second place, but he's still very much a man to watch.
And you can see again on the slopes of this climb, really the Banesto boys feeling very much at home now, getting much closer towards the finish, and Heras's advantage just 11 seconds over the group. Banesto not too worried about chasing him down too rapidly, just keeping a nice steady tempo there to make sure they don't put Abraham Olano into too much difficulty. And sitting comfortably in the group there in the blue jersey of US Postal Service was Lance Armstrong.
But he's still 2:35 down overall, so 11 seconds isn't going to alter things too much. And Escartine also up near the front, but in fact the Banesto boys are just going to keep nice steady tempo. This is more or less a main road climb here, good road surfaces, and not the sort of climb that should shake out Olano. He's not going to struggle like he has done in the Pyrenees, and I don't think this man either will find the roads much suitable to his climbing style either.
But he's really moved up the overall standings over the last couple of days, because he's always managed to grapple back a few more seconds, and he will, I think, get very close to Abraham Olano over the last couple of stages. But the attacks coming, that looked like Escartine sliding across there, but immediately countered by Jalabert and Olano.
Yes, and Zulla not far away either, lying 5th overall. Alex Zulla there, number 1. So he's staying in touch in 2:14 there. Is Claveros having a great tour as well. And they all take a close order again at the front, but they're very alert. They're waiting for Escartine to make his move. He's caused a reaction here which has brought them right up to his teammate as well. I don't know what Heras is thinking about when he looks over his shoulder and sees his teammate and his team captain coming up. Probably nothing, but anyway, they're all back together.
Well, that's a big surprise. In fact, Escartine thought he had the acceleration to get out of that group and get up to his own teammate there. And the man at the back going very quickly backwards, Fabrice Gougeot. We've seen a lot of him over the last few days from the Casino squad, but they certainly haven't had a great tour of Spain when you compare it to the rest of the season they've had throughout Europe.
He's the king of the mountains now, as everybody's gone back in the pack, and this group has thinned out on the climb to just the usual select few. Waiting to catch a glimpse of Lance Armstrong in this group. I haven't done so yet, but he's having a great tour. Serpellini is also up here now.
Armstrong just at the back there behind Alex Zulla. You could see
there he is.
201 there on his jersey, riding comfortably in the slipstream of Abraham Olano, but again moving to the front of the group. Fernando Escartine deciding to try and put a bit more pressure on one sole representative of the Avianca Telecom team from Colombia there, wearing number 11, Castelblanco.
Well, the big test will be the last day in the mountains tomorrow, then the final time trial. So Alex Zulla having a little dig here now, gritting his teeth and giving it just about everything he has. And although he's making it look good, the field are holding him in his sights, I think.
Well, Alex Zulla now 5th overall, 2 minutes 12 behind, wants to try and get himself a little bit closer to Abraham Olano if he's going to make it 3 Tour of Spain victories in a row. But look at that, the work immediately taken up by the leader of the King of the Mountains, Jose Maria Jimenez. No panic at all. He hasn't tried to jump across this time, Phil. So there must have been a discussion between Abraham Olano and Jimenez, because Jimenez now just setting a good pace to try and pull back Zulla sensibly.
Well, Zuller heading off towards the top of the climb, but the tempo has been visibly lifted here, even so. But it's more a tempo rather than a rip snorter to try and reach Zuller immediately. And Jimenez is the man setting the pace. Escartine might be the rider to profit here. As we get higher up the road, you can see the cloud line. It's a mist line, and we might well get into that shortly.
But once you get over the top there, it plunges right down to the finish line in Segovia, and that will be a big advantage for a man who is a good descender. You can see on the front, Maria Jimenez is doing a very good job there, but it looks as if Abraham Olano's in difficulty. He's lost the wheels there.
But he's diving all over the place. It's no good choosing Jalabert, who seems to be cruising backwards as well. Jalabert not happy. Well, it doesn't look a steep climb on the cameras. Over the top of the summit here, Zuller has passed, and they really scrabbled. And I think the top didn't come soon enough for these riders. They now should get back together again.
Well, I tell you what, Abraham Olano was put into difficulty there. Look at that acceleration from Jose Maria Jimenez. And in fact, it's put Laurent Jalabert into difficulty because he's gone off the back of the group over the summit.
He's a lot of work to do on that descent now, but here comes the big man. 4-stage wins, and he's lassoed Alex Zuller, and he is now going to accompany him down the mountain.
Well, Zuller looking for an occasion to try and get himself a few more seconds back towards the lead of Abraham Olano. This coming back now is Daniel Clavero, another Vitalico rider in that group. Surprisingly enough, in the mountains, Phil, was Zinchenko. I caught a sign of him earlier on, and he's still riding a great Tour of Spain this year, has managed to pull himself into a leading group on the mountain stages now.
Well, he's just off our leaderboard in 6th place, Clavero. And here's our little moto sequence for you as each group descends at its own speed. 88 kilometers now and going up.
Good move there by Alex Zuller was doing that 88, and the group here of Abraham Olano not going quite as quickly there, so he'll be losing a bit of time on the two leaders there. But once again, the leader of the King of the Mountains competition has managed to get across to the very important moves. He's having such a fantastic final week to the Tour of Spain here. It's going to be difficult to see what he does tomorrow on the big mountain stage, because Abraham Olano will be put to the test, I'm sure, once again.
Well, he's got to be, and I think if he survives tomorrow in yellow, then he's going to look to win this race by the time we get down to the finish in Madrid. But he's got to survive well tomorrow, and there's always at one stage like that, isn't there, in every stage race, where the leader's going to worry, and he's not going to predict the results of that race until he's past that stage. Tomorrow will be D-Day for Olano, I'm sure of that.
It certainly will, because then after that, just one time trial to go, his own land where he can excel perfectly well. But Alex Zuller there has been pulled back into the fold on that descent there by Abraham Olano, who himself is a very good descender.
Well, a cheeky move for Alex, now back in the race, and coming nicely onto the back of the field there too was Zinchenko. Paul, he's having a great tour now.
It's unbelievable. The guy's got 2-stage victories under his belt, and now he's pulling himself into these select lead groups over the mountain passes. So obviously Vitalico coming into form towards the end of the Tour of Spain. Heras now trying to get off the front, and on the front of that group there, the pace being set once again by the last Banesto man in the group. That's Jose Maria Jimenez.
Well, he's starting to go away here. He's chosen a strange part of the course to launch an attack, and Jalabert is coming back, but he looks as though he was stretching his leg there. We just caught him. He may be cramping up a little bit. Anyway, Heras has gone clear.
Heras, good move by him. Major revelation in the Tour of Spain last year. 5th overall with a stage victory under his belt as well. Now he's decided to go out. He attacked earlier on the slopes of the climb and was pulled back by his own teammate. Now once again, they must be trying to lay down some sort of plan to put Abraham Olano into difficulty. But this is the terrain where Olano is much more comfortable on these descents. He's a little heavier than most of his Spanish adversaries, so he can actually use that weight to his advantage on the descent. And you can see this guy here certainly not super comfortable. Virenque now trying to get across.
Well, Richard Virenque, only a shadow of what he normally is in the mountains. He's now trying to make some amends here as he slowly but surely comes back to form. He won't be allowed to ride the World Championships. The UCI has put a block on all of those riders who are under investigation for suspected doping. And so he's out of the world, so this really is going to be his last big race of the year.
Certainly will. In fact, the defending champion Laurent Brochard also excluded from taking part in that World Championships with Alex Zuller and Laurent Dufaux from Switzerland. So a strange World Championships to have the defending champion not on the starting line. But Heras here looking for an advantage on this group. He has now around about 10 seconds over Richard Virenque, who's again just 10 seconds in front of the chasing group of Abraham Olano. You can see always being led there by Jose Maria Jimenez.
And there we have it all for you in one shot, only briefly as it was. But now, can Kelme get the stage win they have so richly deserved in this Tour this year? They've been close, they've been the people to take the race to the Banesto at every opportunity. Now Varenk trying to get up here to Heras.
Trying very hard there, but look at this, another move coming from Escartino. Lano panicking away, getting across the gap there. Doesn't want the Spanish rider to get any more time on him. He realises now he's got to keep him as close as possible, and that acceleration has brought Richard Varenk back into the fold. Again, the attack coming from the Vitalico Seguros riders. That looked very much to me like it was Dominguez who's gone across there.
Well, he's gone. There was an attack put in briefly by Castelblanco of the Avianca team. But I think he must have been caught back. But right now, we've got this rider out on the counter move.
In fact, that looked like it was Zinchenko.
It looked like the long legs of Zinchenko, I must confess, but it didn't when he came head on to the camera. Anyway, we'll find out very shortly. But right now, this rider is trying to salvage a stage victory here for Kelme and not do himself too bad at all as far as the overall goes. He's still off the pace. That's why Banesto are being forced to ride and ride hard now, because the man that they are chasing, and there he is, Zinchenko. So he's come back because of the chase here now. Beltran, not on the form he was of the last few days, is having difficulty in this front group. In fact, I'm not even sure he's here now.
Well, there's a couple more Banesto guys coming to the front there. The advantage with 10 kilometres remaining of the man we're looking at right now is just 20 seconds, and they're all in the same straightaway there, and you can see him just going under the banner there with the main group being reinforced, I reckon, from the rear by one or two Banesto riders who've recovered on the descent.
Right, the team are getting themselves together now, and they're trying desperately to pull back. Roberto Heras always seems to do well in Vuelta. There he is. 48 seconds, so he's at the moment pulling back almost a minute of his deficit. That will ensure a top 6 position overall by the end of the day. And if he does get into the overall, then I think it will be at the expense of people like Alex Zula, because they are tickling the top 6. Alex in 5th at the moment.
Certainly a good move by him. It was 30 seconds. Now it's up to 45 seconds, and he's flying through the streets now. But behind, the Banesto boys are starting to put the hammer down. Beltran has recovered and come back into this group, and he's coming to the front right now to try and keep the pace exceptionally high to see if they can pull back the Kelme rider Heras, who's in the lead. But he is looking for a stage victory for Kelme this afternoon. A little cobbled section just on the outskirts of town now, and shortly he'll be getting into the streets of Segovia, and he'll be looking for the stage victory. But he's got still a long ride to go on his own, because the group behind Phil, you can see the big long line there showing that they're travelling very fast indeed.
Well, this is not an easy escape at all for this man, and not the sort of stage you'd expect him to win either, because the terrain has gone against him now. But win, I think he is going to. It's just 2 kilometres from the finish. It's steadily downhill at the moment. I don't think they can possibly close that gap now.
They're going to try if they can, but he's not losing any of his energy. Every time there's a slight incline, he gets out of the saddle, because that is his terrain. That's where he can, in fact, increase his power over the rest of the field there. Still trying to keep his advantage, but it's only a slight one. It's down now to 35 seconds, and this group, Phil, seems to me to have swelled quite a bit, because we've got the Vitalico guys coming to the front. That's Clavero on the front for Vitalico, trying to pull back the Kelme rider now, because he reckons if it does come back together, Zinchenko is the fastest man in that group behind.
I think you're right, but in fact this guy, I think he's going to hold it off, and he's only ever won 2 races in his life. He turned pro 4 years ago, and he's about to win his third race in his second stage in his year, in the Vuelta rather. He won a stage last year on his way to finishing 5th overall, and the crowd are going to cheer him all of the way now. This is a lovely feeling. They're not going to chase him down. He is a dangerous rider in this race. He's going to lift himself up the overall classification too. So a stage win in the back for Kelme, and there won't be a dry eye in the house, because they richly deserve that victory. And as they come up to the line, can they make it first and second here? Because I think they can. Escartin and Castelblanco. Escartin's Gutierrez, in fact, who gets the third. Oh, he hasn't got it. Yes, he has. Escartin gets second. Jalabert over there in 4th place. And the pack drifting over the line. And so there won't be many serious changes overall, but there will indeed be a little acceleration up the classification for Roberto Heras. There he is. Only a slight little man. He's a good climber. And I think, as I said earlier, a stage that he was not really expected to win, but he hit them at the right time. They just brought back all the attacks, and he went on a bit of false flat. And as always, if somebody makes a little bit of hesitation, don't chase immediately. It's too late. The escape has gone, and the victory has gone his way today. for the third time only in a career of 4 seasons. Looking down on the beautiful old town here of Segovia, as the riders now have to think of the last big mountain stage of this tour. There's the situation in the King of the Mountains. It's a pretty clear lead for Jimenez over Jalabert. Escartine there in 3rd place. And in the other classification, that's the one that matters. Heras now up in 5th spot. That's what's important. At least it certainly is for Heras, because now we're back on to the Alto de Navacerrada, and in fact we go up it the opposite way to the way the riders have just come down it, and this is much tougher. And in fact, look at the weather conditions here. This is a ride of 206 kilometers, and I'm not too sure how long we can keep bringing you pictures today, because conditions will get worse as the riders get higher.
The weather really glacial, 4 degrees Celsius over the top of some of these climbs today, Phil, and riders are going to have a very hard time. Out on the attack, though, Richard Virenque has been joined by David Leonas Berrutia, a man always aggressive and always looking for the moves, and he is out today trying to protect his position as one of the top riders on Once. But the man keeping himself well covered up against the elements is Abraham Olano, with his thermal rain jacket over the top there, and Jimenez adopting a very interesting hat.
I must say, Jimenez looks as though he's on a training ride here as he just rides along in his little bobby hat there. These are the 2 breakaways as we're on the climb, and the conditions, well, how they've changed in 24 hours. It's unbelievable here, and all this happening, don't forget, on the eve of the final time trial and the last weekend of this race.
Well, you don't expect to see this with a couple of days left to go on the road into Madrid, and the mountain tops here are very difficult indeed, because there's a mist that's come down and the helicopter's having a hard time getting up there to bring the pictures back to us. But in fact, that breakaway group of Leonas Berrutia and Virenque has been joined by a couple of other riders who've just come across there from the Vitalio Seguros team, who really are riding an excellent last week of the Tour of Spain here this year. But Virenque, he certainly has been out on the attack. These 2 guys have been leading the race for the last 60 kilometers.
Well, we'll see if we can pick them up. This looks like it might well be Blanco that may have got across. Just can't quite get a glimpse of his number. Camazin has certainly come and tacked on to the back here. There's Beltran, so if Beltran is here, it looks as though the others will be coming on as well, because Beltran will not be far away from his yellow jersey, Abraham Olano.
Leonas Berrutia now having a very difficult time. Now this group has been joined by some reinforcements. He's been out on the front working very hard indeed. You can see Beltran has definitely joined Virenque, and on the front there, the Kelme boys again in the affairs, trying to make this a very difficult day for Abraham Olano. It's the last chance they've got to put him into serious difficulty.
Well, Ribera here setting the pace. Well, he's not setting the pace now. It looks as though as we go forward here that this race is split up completely as we've got higher and higher, and the conditions are getting wetter and wetter. These are the 2 leaders. No, they're not. This is Camazin trying to go clear here, and the rider with him is Santiago Blanco. As now Zulla puts in an attack from the group. There's only a few seconds blanketing all of these leading riders, and Zulla, who has often done some great performances in adverse weather conditions, he just has to stay upright on his bike to make them look really good.
Well, a big move there, followed by Escartine, and jumping across the white jersey on the shoulders of the climber here, Jimenez. He's gone up there again, covering the moves for his teammate Abraham Olano, and the pressure is being put on Olano, and the conditions out there, Phil, are absolutely atrocious. This is the 2nd group on the road, Jimenez, Escartine and Alex Zulla, and Abraham Olano once again hasn't been able to respond to the attacks from the climbers, but at least he's got Beltran with him. In fact, Beltran's up the road, so he's only got 1 teammate left here to help.
1 teammate left behind to look after him. Things are not looking too good at the moment for the Amarillo jersey. There's the 2 group timings, 1 minute and 4, and then 21 seconds behind is the group Olano. The leaders on the left of our picture, the chasers on the right. Let's go back up and have a look at the pace setters here. Now, Camazin's had a great tour here. He's showing very good form, and the gaps are differing very slightly. Beltran tagged on to the back here, which I'm surprised he's left his teammate, because he's such a loyal guy, but maybe Olano's told him to go and get up and tag on to that chase group.
Well, it's not looking too good now, because in fact Richard Virenque, who was in the middle, has been joined by the group of Alex Zulla, so this is looking rather dangerous now for Abraham Olano. Virenque finding a little bit more energy to try and spur along Alex Zulla on his attack of Abraham Olano's lead, and Abraham Olano looking very isolated now. In this group with him is still Laurent Jalabert and also Lance Armstrong, but there's still some very tough climbs to come.
And there's still the boys that he really wants alongside him up front here, and the gaps are beginning to look serious. In fairness, of of course. Alano's been in this situation a number of times this year and has got himself out of it and in good shape. But he can also rest easy, I suppose, in the knowledge that his teammate Jimenez is up trying to dictate affairs. There were the two leaders, and conditions are still a bit grim, but these guys are used to racing at least one big stage race one day in these conditions.
Well, look very much to me there as if the Santiago Blanco group and Camenzin have just been joined by Alex Zuller, so that is going to make it very difficult indeed, and they've stretched out their lead to 1 minute and 4 seconds now over the group of Abraham Olano. This is the group with Virenque, Zuller and Escartin, so they are riding magnificently, and Olano in serious problems.
And Escartin knows what he's got here as he drives this race on. He's got his teammate Ribeiro to give him a hand, tagged onto the back, the man in white, Jimenez, and won't help any of this. There's the breakdown. Uriarte is also in here. Camenzin and Bogart, believe it or not.
Amazing. The guy has really ridden into the Tour of Spain in the last few days. I don't know where he's been all day, but all of a sudden he pops up, and the champion of Holland is in the leading group on the very last tough mountain stage, and Camenzin is really powering on because Bogart can hardly get by him there.
Well, the guys will be asking who he is, I think, because they haven't seen him for the best part of 3 weeks, but quite clearly he is training for the World Championships, and now he's decided he's going to have a little test to see how his form is coming along, and he's chosen this tough day in the mountains. Well, Escartin, this is his big move now. Not only does he want to get into a breakaway, he wants to gain time over Olano, and more time than he might concede tomorrow in the last time trial.
Well, Virenque's popped. He's come straight out to the back of that group with Alex Zuller now, and that's the end of the day for him. A very long day in the saddle, more than 100 kilometers on the attack, and just in the back of that long echelon line there, you can see the US Postal jersey on the shoulders of Lance Armstrong, riding very well in these adverse conditions. But again, Banesto have recovered, Phil, because there are 3 Banesto riders there moved up to that group of Abraham Olano. They won't give up. They realize this is the last chance, but the leading group now almost 1 minute ahead of Olano still.
Absolutely, and Jimenez having a free ride there. There's Laurent Brochard, the world champion, the rainbow jersey not being very prominent in this race at all. Now sitting at the back of the Olano group, which is under full flight by the Banesto boys, and Lance Armstrong being carried along as well and being taken slowly but surely at the moment up towards this leading group containing Alex Zuller among others, and Escartin. Zuller and Escartin, the riders with the most to gain here, are going to race now until the others work their way up, if indeed they do. But it looks as though the Amarillo jersey is now saying it's time to get down to business.
It certainly is what you have to do once you get to conditions like this. Even if it is very cold out there, you do have to make sure you get those waterproof jackets off, because the big problem when you come to the climbs is you can overheat in conditions like this, despite the fact that it's only 4 degrees Celsius over the top of the climbs, and Olano now getting down to some serious work.
Well, Jose Vicente Garcia was on his own at one stage, isolated with injury, with Olano, but now he's got himself some help, although he still seems to be the strong teammate of the Banesto survivors here.
Well, the gap still hovering around about the 45-second mark. Sitting on the back of the group getting some respite here is Michael Bogart, the champion of Holland. And a man moving to the front of the group of Abraham Olano there is a man you know very well, Phil, the rider Salvatore Commesso from the Seiko Cannondale squad.
Well, I've always thought of him as a young sprinter, but he's coming out in his first year as a pro as to be a real good all-round bike rider. And Seiko must have recognised that fact in his last year as an amateur. He was the European young under-23 champion last year, now in his first full season as a top pro. Anyway, he's had a good ride. He rode well in races like Pyrenees this year as well. But there's the difference now, and you know, he saved the day here. A little bit of service required at the back of the bunch for the Postal boys.
It's Lance Armstrong again trying to call up the team management. Johnny Welch driving the team car here at the moment for Armstrong, and you can see there it's still very close indeed, and they've not given up at all, the team of Abraham Olano. They're pulling this back together.
Well, we've still got the long slug up towards the finishing line here. I don't know whether Michael Bogart will relish the thought of that. Camenzin is not a bad climber. He's sitting at the back. And Escartin been working very hard to get something out of this. But now it's time to sit up and take some food, because I think they're all coming back together. And that's what they're all beginning to do.
Everybody in this group now, Phil, getting stripped off and ready for action, because it's going to be a very difficult final climb up to the finish. This, in fact, will be the 3rd time they've been up the Alto de Nevacerrada this afternoon, because they did come up it earlier on in the afternoon, but from a different side. This side side is the side that they climbed up this morning, so they'll know what is in store for them, and it's very cold and rainy up at the top here.
And we have to tell you, we're not sure what we'll see in the way of pictures either, because they're going to get into that cloud line. And let's hope if there is a showdown, and it seems to me as though these riders are psyching themselves up for one, let's hope we can see it as we get up towards the summit. 15 kilometres to go.
15 kilometres to go in the final mountain stage of this year's Tour of Spain. Oscar Camon's in on the back there, just trying to get a little bit of rest before the serious mountain climbing starts. But Alex Zülle on the front will not lay down arms. Even though the gap is still hovering at 15 to 20 seconds, he's decided he's really going to keep the pressure on. It's a do-or-die effort for him today to try and make this his third Tour of Spain win in a row. He won last year and the year before that, and he would dearly love to win this year because it would certainly save the season for him.
Well, he's coming better and better, although he lost his 5th place overall to Heras after Heras got that stage win, but he's still obviously going pretty well. And the riders now generally are beginning to regroup here now. Alano will breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief, but of course he knows that the big climb is still ahead.
It'll only be a brief sigh of relief, and I think the brief sigh of relief will be to take in as much oxygen as possible, because the final kilometres of this climb are going to be very difficult for these riders, especially in the conditions that they've had to race in today. Alex Zülle not giving up at all. He's left the rest of the group, but he's still got that limpet right on his back wheel. Jose Maria Jimenez is not letting Alex Zülle go anywhere.
Well, this has really been a great tour for Jimenez. He's proved to everybody, and he's become a darling of the Spanish public too. They call him El Chava, and they love him, and he's a little bit of a hero over these past 3 weeks. His image has improved 110%, and he's going to run out the king of the mountains. And you know, he's still up here in the lead group with the climb ahead of him. He's not very far off the Amarillo jersey either.
It's a magnificent ride by him. Alex Zülle too, I have to say, take your hat off to him, because he hasn't given up at all as he goes under the banner indicating 10 kilometres left to go to the finish. He is still riding it out there, and still only around about 12 seconds in front of this group with the Amarillo jersey on the shoulders of Abraham Alano. And the group over the last few kilometres certainly has swelled a little bit, because the riders originally on the attack have been caught, and El Chava is saying, come on boys, get up here, because Alex Zülle is starting to crack.
And the weather, I know lots of spray off the back wheel of our camera motorbike, but believe me, it is absolutely pouring down now. And these riders are soaked, and the rain is cold. Already our pictures are getting a bit shaky here, and we don't know how long they're going to hold these. The helicopter not flying higher up the mountain.
Well, there's Comesso, first chance to get a good view of him, a man who earlier this year won the Giro del Capo in South Africa. A very good rider indeed, and certainly turning out to be a prominent climber. A short, stocky rider, much more suited to the sprinting that he usually is renowned for, but here converting himself into a very good climber, and a man I'm sure we'll see a lot more of in stage races in the future.
So he continues now to set the pace. Nothing to gain, only a few places overall. He's not a challenger this time around. This man has shown he's begun to enjoy this race. 2 stage wins, Paul, and it looks as though he's going again. Zinchenko.
He's going off the front again on a mountain climb. He's the kind of guy who normally is renowned, in fact, Comesso going straight out the back there, but Zinchenko is normally renowned as a rider on the flat. He put an attack in there, but they've pulled him back. That was a seriously good move by him, and you can see again, Abraham Alano is in difficulty on the slopes of this climb because he's been left behind by all of the other adversaries.
I think you're right. I think he's been dropped by everybody that matters now, and this is the very select little group as they're heading up towards the top of the climb. There's Alano in trouble. Serrano is behind him, I think it was. But that really doesn't matter too much now. Here we have the top 2 Kelme. Lance Armstrong is nudged into the back there on the wheel of Jimenez, and this was the day when we thought a lot of rides would crack. Armstrong is getting better and better and better.
Armstrong's in that leading group of 5 riders with Escartine, and further down the slope you can see Abraham Alano is in difficulty. Escartine now is looking for the finish line, and he's starting to accelerate, and Armstrong has got the legs to go with him.
And we've managed to keep our pictures, which is great now, because Escartine is going. Zinchenko is also going. This man is heading up now on the most difficult stage of the Tour, which is what some of the riders are saying in these conditions, for a possible 3rd stage win here now. And so the Russian has gone clear, and he's not going to get caught way in the distance. Well, there he is. You'll have to take my word for it. He's won the stage in 5.5 hours, and in 2nd place there was Heras, and that's a great result for him. Jimenez was 3rd, and Armstrong, I think, crossed the line in 5th place. They are in. The clock has started, and these riders with the Amarillo jersey are still to finish.
Well, you know, Abraham Alana has really suffered in these conditions today. One of the riders in the main field who is not able to ride well in bad conditions like this. He really kind of tetanizes his muscles. The cold gets in there and stops them responding. He can now see the barrier at the top there, and shortly he'll be looking for the left-hand turn into the finish line, and he'll be happy about that because today he's losing an awful lot of time to his own teammate, Jose Maria Jimenez.
He's lost his Amarillo jersey. He was just over 30 seconds ahead at the start. That's all gone now, as in the murk the riders continue to cross the line. And how about that? Jimenez has got his hands again on the Amarillo jersey, this time taking it away from his Benesto teammate. And you know, there can be no arguments in the team because there's been no case of blackmail or tricking one another into the lead. There's the confirmation. Zinchenko the winner today, Heras getting a great second place, Jimenez with that third place giving him the race lead, Armstrong delighting everybody there with fifth. And there's confirmation of that now. Jimenez leading Escartine by 6 seconds. Alano is down to third. Heras is up to fourth. And so, after the clouds of the summits of the mountains, it's back down to the flatlands now. 200 kilometres remaining in this tour. And we've gone to Fuenlabrada for the 39-kilometre time trial. And this should be where we finally sort out the overall classification of the Vuelta. This man has simply had a wonderful tour. He came here just to finish. And you know, he has a real chance of a top 5 finish now.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, I think he's got a chance of a place on the podium as well, because if he can produce the kind of time trial that he used to win the Tour du Pont a couple of years ago, he could pull himself very close to the Spanish riders in front of him, because they are not renowned as the great time trialists of the world. All he needs is around about 2 minutes on riders like Escartine to pull himself onto a position on the podium, and that would be absolutely fantastic.
Well, the last man to go will not be Abraham Alano, but again Jose Maria Jimenez. And that's interesting, and to say the least, 38 seconds splitting him from Alano. Alano, in theory, should ride that time out in the time trial and should win this tour, but you never know. We're watching here Alex Zuller, former champion of the world at time trialing and trying to get himself back into this race, and what's more, a great winner of this tour last year.
I have to tell you one thing though, Phil, he lost an awful lot of time yesterday as Melcho Mauri comes up the line here to set the new second best time, 47.57. That's a good ride by him. We haven't seen much of him out on the course, and he's probably out there trying to do something for Laurent Jalabert and set some early intermediary times.
Well, so far it's all going the way of Benesto. They've held the lead now for days, in fact since stage 10. And Grady's been in the lead in the points since stage 13. But the yellow jersey has been Jimenez, Alano, Jimenez, and now we're waiting to see if it goes Alano again. And Roberto Heras, who's had his great moments in this tour and is still riding for a high finish.
Well, strange weather conditions out here as well, as Abraham Alano goes straight off the starting ramp there. A storm just a few moments ago has wetted the roads here and will make one or two of the corners quite tricky.
Alano needs to watch out for that, but he's on the way now, and he's just going to try and repeat the great time trial he had earlier on in this tour.
Laurent Brochard coming in there for 9th best time, but the man really looking to try and keep himself up on the podium. Fernando Escartine, not a great time trialist for him. He is only a few seconds off the time of Jose Maria Jimenez, and he must certainly be thinking about the possibility of winning this year's Tour of Spain.
Well, the Spanish mustn't know who to cheer here. The last 3 riders on the classification, all from Spain, and they're waiting now to see the departure of the man who has got the Amarillo jersey. Here's the rider now, and he must be, you know, after a ride like this, Paul, he's got to go into the upcoming World Championships as one of the favourites to win that title again.
Well, the great thing about Armstrong, which has always been his forte, is his psyche. He's really motivated to go forward from here now to the World Championships, to the time trial, and to the road race as well. And once he sets his mind to something, he nearly always comes up and does it. So he won't be very far off the win when it comes to the World Championships in Valkenburg in 2 weeks' time.
His bottle there tacked onto the end of his saddle, reminiscent of the days when he was a good triathlete. But now, of course, he's an extremely good pro bike rider.
2 times champion of the United States in the triathlon, and that's why he swapped across to ride. But the man starting last here, Jose Maria Jimenez, will be looking for the best time trial performance of his career to try and win this year's Vuelta.
Now you can see how popular that man is, because the big cheers coming from the officials of the Tour as well, as everybody is now on course. Laurent Jalabert, champion of the world time trialist, now trying to do something in this Tour, and he's been an absolutely fabulous winner of it in years gone by.
Marco Serpellini, a young rider on the Brescialat squad, going through one of the intermediary sprints there. But out on the course, you can see Jalabert now wearing the white jersey, a second in the King of the Mountains competition, because that currently is being held by El Shaba, Jose Maria Jimenez and Alex Zuller, coming up to the first intermediary time check with the fastest time.
Yeah, it looks like at the moment, certainly, and it's not going to get weakened, I don't think. At 22 minutes dead is Melchior Mauri, and Alex is going to sneak in there, just 5.5 seconds slower, faster rather. And so he's starting to look as though he might be on the ride here. We haven't seen these boys get there yet, though.
Still waiting for Abraham Olano, riding once again the famous Espana, the bicycle we won't see a lot of in the future. And interestingly enough, you see, Phil, that the leader of the Tour doesn't have a very specialized time trial machine, and that will give the advantage from him to Jose Maria Jimenez, who currently has lost 37 seconds to his team leader.
Well, that is just about the Amarillo jersey as well, because starting the day today, he was 38 seconds behind Olano. So more or less Olano on course now to recapture the Amarillo, and the Banesto boys, who have thrown that jersey around for the best part of 2 weeks, are going to throw it around again, it seems. Well, there we are, that's it, Paul, he's lost it.
He's lost it, it's gone out to 39.40. It's hovering though, he's still holding his team leader there, Abraham Olano, but certainly once we get on to the flatter part of the course, when Olano can pull up the big stops, then he certainly will eat more into that lead. Armstrong now coming up with a very good time indeed.
This is terrific performance by Armstrong. Zuller is there, best time at 21.54. 9.62 seconds by Lance Armstrong. He's gone through quicker than Alex Zuller. He's the leader on the road. That's unbelievable.
Fantastic performance by Armstrong there, Phil. Really coming to the top again of international cycling. But still we have to wait for the arrival of Abraham Olano, a renowned time trialist. Second at the Olympic Games to Miguel Indurain. Second at the World Championship time trial in Colombia.
So, Lance Armstrong then, trying to get up to the finishing line in best place, and he's taking head-to-head the man that's won this race for the past 2 years. We're looking now at Federico Escartin, who is riding for his life here for a high finish in the Tour, and that's what concerns him. 20 kilometres to go now, and here's the check coming from Laurent Jalabert. Tied to beat Armstrong, and Jalabert is not going to match that or anything like.
Well, in fact, Jalabert going well outside the time of Lance Armstrong, so Armstrong at the moment is looking very much as if he's going to leapfrog over Jalabert in the overall standings. He's 26 seconds behind the time of Lance Armstrong.
Well, Jalabert is the main target of Lance Armstrong, and this could be a super finish for the American, and one he could never have possibly have dreamt of.
Well, I think he was dreaming last night, dreaming of trying to get himself onto the podium in Madrid tomorrow. 45 seconds down for Roberto Heras, and I'm pretty sure soon he'll be feeling the breath of Abraham Olano on his shoulders. He started 2 minutes ahead of Olano, and Olano very shortly will be coming to that early time check.
And here he is, a nice close-up view of all power here. A man who's had to struggle through every mountain stage, I think, but he's limited his losses on every occasion. And now he should make things come good in the time trial. Let's have a look. There's Lance's time. Well, he's going to be quicker than Lance, that's for sure. 21.44 is the time at 20 kilometres covered. Now, Abraham Olano sprinting up the hill, 16 seconds quicker than Lance Armstrong. So he really is riding back into that yellow jersey.
He certainly wants to put in a master performance out on the course. The man not renowned as a time trialist, Fernando Escartin, trying to keep as low profile as possible as he can on that machine, but not very comfortable at all. Oscar Camen's in now, coming up to the finish line. A great ride by him, but not good enough really to change the overall standings.
Well, if Lance Armstrong is going to knock Escartin off the top overall positions, he's got to beat him by 2 minutes and 44 seconds in the time trial. I don't think that's possible. 8th place at the moment for Oscar Camazin, and he's 50 seconds off the race lead. This is the situation out on the course at just on 20 kilometres. Olano best time, Armstrong second, Zuller third, Melchior Mauri, we've seen him finish, he was 4th best time here.
Still 2 riders to come up there to that finishing, that intermediary time split there. Escartin and the last man on the road, Jose Maria Jimenez. They've got to try and stay in contact with the times being set out on the road by Abraham Olano, and he looks as if he's gone out really in earnest today. You can see how he's got down so low in his profile on the course there. Now is the chance we get to see how close Fernando Escartin is going to be, and he's a long way off the time. More than a minute it will be on the line to that of Abraham Olano.
But still a long way from losing his place to Lance Armstrong here, because Escartin only 58 seconds down. Yes, it's in 9th place, but it's the time that counts now. And 2:44 is what he would have to lose his place to Lance Armstrong. That's not going to happen, I don't think. Escartine is pulling out something special here.
These men really do suffer in a speciality which is not their own. Andrei Zinchenko, the man we've seen an awful lot of the last few days, comes up. That's 11th place for him. Jose Maria Jimenez now looking too to try and keep the yellow jersey on his shoulders.
Well, anything over 38 seconds means it won't be, and it's a minute 27, so Jimenez, and no surprises, I don't think, least of all to Jose Maria. He is going to lose that jersey now to Olano. There they are, all through at 19.5. Olano well clear, Armstrong in second place, and that is particularly good for all Americans.
It certainly is. Armstrong riding well, but this man riding like the perfect machine, solid on his bike, right down on the central handlebars there, keeping himself very aerodynamic, and that machine certainly is cutting very much through the wind. Armstrong, though, is doing a great performance, a fairly standard Trek machine for him, made out of light titanium with just one disc wheel in the rear.
Well, a good choice today because conditions there are not very good, but the roads at last are beginning to dry here, and Armstrong, the days long since gone when Miguel Indurain passed him early on in a time trial on the Tour de France, and Lance couldn't believe the speed of that great Spaniard, but he has improved enormously since then in every department. But to go so well this year for Lance is particularly poignant. Anyway, we're now looking at Abraham Olano here, and he's up against his own teammate head-to-head in Jimenez. Here is Jimenez now racing towards the clouds, where his head most certainly hasn't been on this Vuelta. He's been simply brilliant.
Unbelievable performance too, Phil, by Richard Virenque. He's come over the second half of this course very quickly indeed, and he's caught and passed Beltran.
So Virenque coming up now, the time to beat 47.47 by Ribera. He delivered a good one. We didn't see him finish, but now a new best time. Virenque's got it at the moment, 47.37, but everybody awaiting the arrival of Alex Zula because he's been up on Richard throughout the ride.
Abraham Olano now with 1 minute and 40 seconds advantage over his own teammate, Jose Maria Jimenez, the man wearing the Amarillo jersey on this final time trial stage of the Tour of Spain. And it looks now, Phil, as if Abraham Olano is starting to struggle a bit. You can see that movement creeping into the upper part of his body, and he's fighting to keep that big gear going on the slight inclines. On the other side of the screen there, you can see Armstrong too bobbing about a little bit, but certainly those two going a lot faster than Jose Maria Jimenez in the bottom left-hand corner.
And poor old Fernando Escartine on the right, but he is surviving and is hanging on, according to the time checks, to his high place finish overall, which at the moment is second in this event. He was just 6 seconds off Jimenez at the start today, so they're head-to-head for a big finish. Anyway, getting up towards the end now for the whole race here. The road's drying out. This has been a very, very good time trial course, a pure speedman's course down this highway, and that is bound to swing even more in favour of Olano.
Speed and power, that's what Abraham Olano is all about. He's matched this year the training preparation of Miguel Indurain. He thought he could come to the Tour de France with perfect condition. It didn't seem to work. Again, he was always wanting something more when it came to the big climbs, but here it seems as if he's done everything right in the Tour of Spain. He's limited his losses in the mountains, made sure that he didn't lose too much time to the big climbers, even to his own teammate Jose Maria Jimenez, and he's banked it all, as Miguel Indurain did, on the final time trial.
Well, Escartine, by the way, is up. Oh, we might be able to see that now at 26. And no, they're not on there, but Escartine is up on Jimenez. While we're seeing Olano setting the pace, Armstrong only 12 seconds slower, and absolutely riding formidable today. Zula is 25 seconds off the top two. So Armstrong is delivering one terrific surprise today.
Well, if either Escartine or, in fact, Jose Maria Jimenez crack towards the end, as they seem to be doing here, Armstrong could be riding himself into a place on the podium. He started the day in 6th position, 2 minutes 48 seconds behind Maria Jimenez in the overall standings, but Zula is scorching the road out there, Phil, and his times are looking pretty impressive.
Well, the arrival of Alex Zula, and they say he's been making time over these last few kilometres. Well, there's the time he's got to beat his own teammate Richard Virenque. He's going to easily do that by a big chunk here. What is it? 1.71 better than Richard Virenque. Alex Zula has thrown down the gauntlet now for a great victory, and I think only Olano and Lance Armstrong possibly can get near that.
Well, here's Roberto Heras. He's about to have company on his ride in the time trial here, and it's going to be in the shape of Abraham Olano, who's catching him in one of the corners there, and he's going straight by him with such incredible speed. The draft will probably give the little Spaniard a cold.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think Heras probably Surprised that he's kept away from Olano for so long here, because we're running down towards the finish now. So Heras, I think, has done a pretty good ride here to hold him off this far.
He certainly has. He's lost 2 minutes so far. These riders in the time trial here starting 2 minutes apart on this 39-kilometre time trial, not very far outside of Madrid, and everybody now will be thinking about one final stage left to go. But Abraham Olano is thinking about making sure he can get the Amarillo jersey onto his shoulders for the last time and take it down into Madrid tomorrow.
6 kilometres to go, just under 4 miles for Abraham Olano. Still best time on the board at the checkpoint. Best time, though, with a great last quarter. Alex Zula came from third best overall. Don't forget, he's now in with the best time, but he has gone so much quicker in the closing kilometres, and Paul has rightly observed it looks as though Olano is not completing this final quarter of the course as well as Zula might have done.
Well, he's getting out of the saddle there now, trying to keep that big gear going, and it's very difficult indeed. He knows the advantage he has over his teammate Jimenez is well up to 1:40, and Armstrong coming in with a great time, Phil.
Look at this, Zula the time to beat. Now, he was always quicker than Zula, but he's gone slightly behind him. There's an indication how good Zula has gone. Armstrong slips down to second. We expected Lance to deliver the first time there.
But another man not doing a great ride in the time trial here is Laurent Jalabert. He's 1.5 minutes down on Abraham Olano. So Olano powering away from Jalabert, but the important thing is Jalabert's bad time is actually going to be good for Lance Armstrong, because he too will find himself leapfrogging over Laurent Jalabert, putting himself at the moment up into around about 4th place in the overall standing, and it could be higher if the two Spaniards behind him, Jimenez and Escartin, don't ride well.
There's a situation at the finish now. Zula still on top. Armstrong slowed a little in the final quarter. Virenka's dropped to third. Ribera has done a great ride there, still hanging on to 4th place.
There's the champ, the team manager shouting, Via, 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 go, go, go. He's trying to encourage his man just a little bit further to push himself high and try and keep the yellow jersey on his shoulder. Jalabert, not a great ride by him. He'll be inside the top 10, but a long side outside the time of Armstrong.
He's not going to like to see this at all. Jalabert will know how he's been going. He's slipping slowly away. Nico Matan there. Well, that's not a great place to be for the man of this man's capability. Anyway, 10th place at the moment for Laurent Jalabert, and we've still got 3 riders out on the course.
Well, there's one of them there. You can see Jose Maria Jimenez riding very well. But I tell you one thing, Phil, Olano is not riding super over the last 4 or 5 kilometres here, because Heras is actually pegging him, and he's not leaving him behind at all. So Abraham Olano must have gone out very quickly, and now I think he's hit the wall, and he's just surviving over the last few kilometres.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've forgotten about Heras. We've got 4 riders out on the course. But anyway, look at this now. The cheeky Roberto is having another little dig at Abraham Olano. This is not a good sign for Olano at all, but he's got the time in hand, I think, over Jimenez, and surely he's not going to concede that now. Listen to the crowd here. Well, this has been a great tour.
They know he's doing a great ride here, but he's not doing enough, I don't think, to win the stage here from Alex Zula, because he's slowing down over the last few kilometres. Heras keeps coming back at him, nudging him a little bit, saying, you're supposed to be the time trialist, but you can't get rid of me, son.
Well, but he's sprinting towards the finish here now, and he's shooting along here. Abraham Olano, a king of the time trial for sure, runner-up in the World Championship to Miguel Indurain a couple of years back, but I think he's not going to get there in time to beat Alex Zula now. We've still got the head-on shot, and here it comes. He'll come swinging off that bend. The time is only 6 seconds to the line. I think he's going to be pipped by a second or 2 here. Abraham Olano, who was the leader, has come up to the line. 1 second is the difference. He is down to second place.
Unbelievable. That was all done over the last 4 or 5 kilometres. He really lost it. He pushed himself very hard in the first half of this time trial, and I think he blew a little bit towards the end, because if a man like Heras can keep coming back at him, then obviously Abraham Olano was not riding at 100%, but I think he may well have done enough to pull the Amarillo jersey back onto his shoulders after relinquishing it to his teammate yesterday. We now just have to wait for Escartin to come in, as well as Jose Maria Jimenez.
Jimenez, I think, knows that his deficit now is simply too much on Abraham Olano. He hasn't really gathered much speed over this last quarter either. The man that's done that is Alex Zula, who is going to be the winner now for sure, because these guys aren't going to get close. Here comes Fernando Escartin. I think I called him Federico before, but it doesn't matter. He's coming in now, and he's going to hopefully retain his second place overall in the Vuelta for the big day out tomorrow. Zulla still top of the leaderboard, and way off it now is Escartine. But this is a personal battle, really, with the other riders lower down the classification to hang on to that second place. And this should be good enough for him. He keeps his nice style all the way to the line. He's dropped to 13th, but he rivals Uwe Peschel. That's not a bad man to rival. There's the situation then, and we've still got Jimenez to finish. Zulla 1 second up on Alano, and a mere 8 on Lance Armstrong. Fantastic for Lance, that.
Unbelievable performance by him. The last man on the road now, the yellow jersey, Amarillo of the Vuelta a Espana, on the shoulders of Jose Maria Jimenez. I think that skin suit's just a little bit too short for him there, because there's a gap of white skin at the top of his thigh. But he knows now. The team manager shouting at him behind, Venga, Venga, Venga. Just a few kilometres left to go. Keep pushing it, keep the pressure on, because you can still make yourself keep on the top level of the podium. And he's looking for third place, because Armstrong has done such a great ride. He may steal it from the Spaniard.
Yeah, and so is Escartine as well. He's going to beat Jimenez to the line here. And so I think it's a tumble from first to third rather than a 1-2 for Benesto, but the time will tell us. Here he comes, and already you see he's way down the list now, a lot further down, almost double the pace from Escartine. The maillot jaune, the yellow jersey, the Amarillo jersey, over the line. 2.51 minutes is the difference there. So the result, Zulla gets the stage win. Alano second, Armstrong a brilliant third there. Overall, it's Alano now, Escartine, and Jose Maria Jimenez is down to third. Lance Armstrong is up into fourth place. Laurent Jalabert goes down into fifth, and Heras also loses a little bit of ground. Absolutely brilliant riding, though, by Armstrong. He's just off a podium place, and in theory nothing should change on the last stage. There, though, a relieved big smile from the man from Switzerland. The winner for the past 2 years is now the winner of a very, very prestigious time trial here, and he all came good in the last few kilometres. And it's back in yellow now for Abraham Olano. He knows now that he is going to win this Tour of Spain. And all that remains, 163 kilometres, barely 100 miles, a circuit around Madrid to complete the 3,800 kilometres. And this has been a brilliant bike race this year. We have seen different leaders from start to finish. Zeberg for a couple of days, then Jalabert for a day, Grady for 2 days, Jimenez for 3 days, then Olano for a week and a half, then Jimenez for a day, and now Olano to finish it off on this final weekend. And not surprisingly, the riders, as always, in great spirits.
Certainly, what a great finish here. The circuit race around the centre of Madrid. And as we get closer to the finish, you can see that the teams of the sprinters taking a much greater interest in the result here. Last year, it went to Max van Heeswijk, now riding for the Rabobank squad, who leapt away in the final turn and surprised all of the sprinters and hung on to win by a couple of lengths.
And we haven't seen too much of Van Heeswijk. He's still in the race, by the way, but we haven't seen anything of him the whole time. This man has had a great tour, though, Oscar Kammerzind. And it looks like he's going to play the bait for everybody else to chase down now, the former champion of Switzerland, as he starts the attacks for the win.
4 kilometres left to go to the finish. A good move by him, very similar to the move made by Max van Heeswijk last year. And you know, the speed in the main field, Phil, it is very difficult for a lone man to get out off the front and survive.
But you've always got to try, because one day somebody will succeed. But now the sprinters, what's left of them, by the way, and there aren't many left in this race. Watch out for Marcel Vusto, because he's still here. Blijlevens has gone now. Grady, who's going to run out the points winner of this race, he's still in there somewhere as we come to line. Zeberg, Marcus Zeberg, the man that won stage one, has now taken the last stage. What a way to top and tail your tour. And the rider in second place was Van Heeswijk. Well, there you are, and another great trophy as well. Let's run through the classifications then. Zeberg getting the victory ahead of Van Heeswijk. Raimondi is there in third place. Of the other classifications, the King of the Mountains, a clear victory for Jimenez. He's been a star of this tour, to say the least. Jalabert taking second, and Escartine there in third place. Heras getting the fourth place slot. In the other event, which is the King of the Sprints, then a victory here for the Brasiliat rider, and that is Gianluca Raimondi. Fabrizio Guidi taking second, and Rubira getting the third place finish there. And that's what we usually call the hotspot sprint competition. Jalabert in the frame as well. In the points jersey, Fabrizio Guidi getting the victory here for Polti. He led it for the last week and a bit of the Tour. Jalabert second, Jimenez third, Marcel Wust with a couple of stage wins there, getting in fourth place. No doubt, though, who the winner was. Abraham Olano now gets a big win on the record books, and Spain have got themselves a new start. A minute 23 ahead of Escartin, the Spanish taking top 3 places, Lance Armstrong getting fourth. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage of this. Paul Sherwin and I certainly have, bringing it to you.